Good morning, Jeannie. You're muted.
Okay, how's
There-
that? All
That's
right. How's my hair look? I'm just kidding.
that's great. It's as curly as mine.
Right? Yeah. Yeah, my computer decided to reboot itself 2 minutes ago. Like super.
Of course.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah, I noticed it wasn't up, so I just logged in and fired it up.
yep. Got that ready. Okay. And then do we have Nick yet?
Yeah, I think so.
There he is. His hands up. Hey Nick. Do we need to change his role
We sure
so he
could.
can talk?
Yeah, that's probably a good idea.
Allow to talk. There you go.
I just promoted him to a panelist.
Okay.
Hi. Hey.
Hello. Morning.
I tried to log in and it looked like I don't have the password to GIS Colorado
Oh,
anymore.
yeah.
I don't know if it got changed or something. But,
Yeah, she might have changed it.
yeah, so that's me and you that are doing the moderation then, Jeannie?
Yes,
that right?
yes, I was just trying to think this morning, for whatever reason, people like to pile on meetings today when I tell them I can't. So, you know, that
Yeah.
means double down.
So, well, do you want, are we gonna, what does it go per event? We got something to say there or?
You know what? Not
per-
really sure. That was
Okay.
something that I thought about last night as well. I mean, you know, Karen and I are ready to go for this morning, but I think the rest of it is just, you know, the standard stuff, kicking it off. Let's do this. But
Okay.
each week probably we'd want to say something, right?
Yeah, I figured just basic housekeeping. You'll use the same Zoom link and
Yeah. So you and I, Karen, probably doing that.
yeah.
Okay.
And then we should probably review what Darcy had last time, actually.
I love that we're talking about this while everyone's on. Yeah. But that's the part of the whole virtual thing is you get, you know, a little more, it's like a reality show. Yeah. Oh yeah, I should update my backdrop as well. Because I did download.
Yes, behind the scenes.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Yep, this is what really happens when you log in early enough. Behind the scenes. Yeah, I almost sent you guys out a panicked text when I couldn't get my computer to cooperate. It's like,
oh, really?
I'm coming, I swear. Yeah.
It's all right. That's why we have backup.
Yep. Nice. And then
Oh, start recording.
I think it's already recording.
Oh,
I think, yeah, we set it up to do it automatically. And so you can certainly pause it, you know, when we're starting out and stuff if we haven't started quite yet. But it just caught everything since we've all logged on.
Okay.
Let's see here.
There we go. Synchronicity.
Oh, nice. We all match. Listen, one of these days I'm going to make us all do the Brady Bunch boxes. So we're all looking down and looking up and we're going to catch that. Okay. I still got a couple more minutes on my clock, but I always like to check because a coworker texted me this morning that I was late to a stand-up and his computer was 15 minutes ahead.
Hmm.
Oh,
So I don't trust him anymore.
My laptop is like 4 minutes behind.
Oh, okay.
So yeah,
Okay.
I'm always
Yeah.
checking my phone to make sure
So
that I'm
Karen's behind. I'm maybe right on time.
yeah, mine says 8:59.
Okay.
I
yeah,
don't
Okay.
mine too.
have any problems with it before.
Yeah, it was funny. He's like, one screen says 7:45, one says 7:41. I don't understand because it's the same computer just projected on another screen. Yeah, it's like, yeah, you might want to send that back. Yeah, we've got quite the lineup. People starting to file in. We had registrations all the way up until this morning, so we're gonna have a good group for
Nice.
this. Yep, very excited.
All right. That's,
Oh
all my
yeah,
bells are going
straight up.
off. So
Yep. Yeah.
I'm on mute. The bells and whistles.
Yay.
All right. So let's get this party started.
yeah, do you want me
Yeah.
to kick it off or do you want to go,
Mhm.
Jeannie? You want to read it?
Yeah, I'm gonna let Karen start.
Or Karen, you got it?
All right. Well, good morning, everyone. It is a pleasure to have you joining us for the second installation of the Elevations Geospatial Summer Series. We are, of course, transitioning because of the lovely pandemic that we are hopefully on our way out of. But here we are, and I know that virtual formats are not everybody's favorite, but we are excited with the content that we are sharing with you over the next few weeks. And I think we have just a great lineup of speakers and information and training and just a lot of good stuff coming. So I'm going to let Genie thank our sponsors. But again, thanks to our presenters and instructors. And as you know, we're using Zoom to present our stuff. And so all attendees will be on mute. We are recording all of our sessions. And as you know, we will make those recordings available to you at a later date. I think like immediately we can make those links available. And then for WyGEO, we're going to have them. Anyway, they'll be available for those who have paid for your registration. And we ask if you have questions to use the Q&A option to ask the questions of the presenters. And the chat feature is only to be used for technical issues, like if you have troubles seeing somebody's slides or something, because the chat's only visible to the presenters and the host. And if the presenter chooses to open it up to other people to speak, then raise your hand and you'll be unmuted one at a time. So that's kind of the housekeeping stuff and other housekeeping items. As you hopefully you guys remember, we use the same Zoom link for each week. And so whether it's training or presentations, just use that same link, which you should have been emailed for each week. Would certainly love to thank our planning committee. We have had a lot of fun organizing this conference for you, and it's been a great collaborative effort between WyGEO and GISCO, and certainly love to thank all of our GISCO pals that have come to the table and our WyGEO board members who have made this take off. So thanks to all of you. And then my last piece is to plug our social hour tonight. Our first social hour is tonight, and that's for anyone, whether if you have other colleagues that didn't pay for their registration, they're welcome to join. Nick and Jeannie are going to be our hosts tonight to have some fun. So with that, I will turn it over to Jeannie and stop my video.
Nice. Thanks, Karen. Yeah, we really want to extend a huge thank you to all of our sponsors for this event. We couldn't do it without you guys. That would be Nearmap, Frontier Precision, Woolpert, AIRS Geospatial, GIS Piece, and Wyoming Geospatial Information Science and Technology. So thank you all for helping us put this event together, and we hope that we will see you next year when Elevations is in Steamboat Springs in May. fingers crossed. So now it is a delight to introduce our next speaker. This person has celebrated many accomplishments in the geospatial field and has proven to be a very forward thinker. Over the years, I've had the privilege to work with him and watch him advance from a talented developer to an inspiring innovator, acquiring many awards for bringing forward new and exciting technologies with his company, ARGIS Solutions. He and his team are celebrating their 5th year anniversary as a business this year. Please welcome Brady Hustad. And there, now you can talk, Brady.
Hey, can you hear me now?
Yes. Yes.
Sweet. I was like, can you make me so I can present?
Nope, hand gestures all the way.
I was like, this could be awesome. You're going to love it. Hey, everyone. I am now going to try to share, and we're going to get going on this. Can somebody say if they can see my screen?
I see it.
Yes.
Excellent. Awesome. So, good morning and welcome to Elevations. I'm going to start right here. I'm at a disadvantage. I can only see a couple of you. So give me one moment. I'm going to get in my mind that you're all not just getting your doing your morning email and getting your coffee, and I'm going to act like you're sitting in a room with me. So give me a second. Okay, much better. All right. Now, for introductions, I'm Brady Hustad. I am the founder of ARGIS. It's a local Colorado company that specializes in spatial and reality technologies. And I am humbled that my friends at Elevations have asked me to kind of help kickstart their virtual conference. What I'm hoping to do in the next 30 minutes is to bring something that is usable, something practical, in a time when we could all have kind of used that, right? By the end of this, some of you will probably roll your eyes at me and say, we've been doing that for years. Now, there's might be a wake-up call and a few steps that you might be able to help you out in your organization. Hopefully, the one thing I'm really hoping is that I at least can all entertain you for 30 minutes as we kick off this, and you can consider this time well spent. And the clicking's even working now. So amazing. All right. COVID has rocked our world. You know, it's changed so much that we do every day. How we live, what we worry about. Here in Colorado, we just got the right to not wear our masks in public places. I am vaccinated. I have done all the right things. And so why is it that I feel weird or awkward walking into a bank without a mask? I mean, world has changed, right? And of course, because of these times, we've had new problems. Or if we're honest with ourselves, maybe they're actually old problems that we never had to address because they've never been tried in the crucible of a real crisis. But either way, we have new catchwords. We all have articles and things we're reading about being resilient and adaptable and future-proofed and yeah, all these great words. But for me, this has been a bit of a challenge, okay? In fact, it was just 2 or 3 weeks ago, I read another 4 or 5 page article on how to be resilient. And at the end of it, I was relatively positive I understood the word resilience, but I didn't actually have anything that would help me be resilient. So today, to open this event, I would rather be a bit practical. Let's practically talk about what it means to be a few things in our GIS, about being these things. So to start that, I want to talk about practical things. Things that sometimes are simple, they're obvious. Sometimes they're things we haven't thought about. And sometimes they're really hard. So what is a practical thing? Well, for me, when I think about practical things, I think about items and tools I use every day as part of the fabric of my life. A spoon, a fork, a shovel, a mower, my computer. I'm sitting right in front of it right now. Things that practically help in general. Maybe not every day, but often enough that I make sure I have one available and that it's working. Another very practical thing in my life is my car. I use it daily. I really, really like it when it gets me from point A to point B without itself dying or causing me to die. Both of these I consider very important. And a car is more than that, though. For my generation, at least, I've heard this is changing in the world, but for my generation, a car was very empowering. It was my freedom. It allowed me to get a job, to earn money, to visit my friends, to go on a date, and to be honest, to look cool. So I kind of took this passion of mine and moved it forward and created a hobby out of it. So, or I should say we, because you don't really decide to restore a 66 Mustang and not drag your family into the mess, right? So we are restoring a 66 Mustang. We've done a bunch of work on it. We've rebuilt the engine compartment. We've rebuilt the floor pan. Here you can see my family working on it. We're actually putting a new oil pan on my engine. We've soundproofed the quarter panels. We've gone in, put in a brand new wiring harness from end to end, and the list goes on, right? Some of them are for fun. And here's a picture of my daughter with her friends. The stereo, for instance. Last thing I did right before I started my business. And so it literally was a 2,000-pound stereo in my garage for a long time. And so they really love the stereo. Some of the things we've done are very, very practical, though. Number one killer of classic cars, faulty wiring. So the wiring harness. But at the end of the day, this car that I'm doing, this working on, has to be a dream or something. It has to have certain expectations that it meets to meet that dream or goals that I have for it. And it is great. I love having this hobby. And having a project, something that gets my hands dirty periodically for a guy who sits in front of a computer is really amazing. But if I didn't have a goal or a dream for it, that'd be kind of not awesome. That'd be the opposite, right? So on this dream, we have things, we have expectations on this car, right? My family wants to go get ice cream in it, right? My daughter wants to take it to prom. And yeah, thank you. She's a freshman, so I've got a few years to get the car ready for that. My wife and I want to take it on the road, maybe drive Route 66, maybe go to Glacier. I don't know, but go somewhere in it. Personally, my day-to-day, I want it to be a daily driver. I want to be able to take it to my meetings, to lunches, to just be in it. Go out, drive it all the time. But to meet these, I do have to make it do a few things for us. The first is it does have to be reliable. Okay? I want it to be a daily driver. I needed to be able to get there from point A to point B and keep running, right? If I want my kids to drive it, it has to be safe. So I've done things to make it reliable. I put seatbelts in it. I've made the new wiring harness, as I mentioned. Another thing about this car is it's going to have to be visible. Now, let's be honest, I'm a computer geek, right? I'm not making a 10-inch car. I'm making a 10-foot car. Maybe I take a second and explain that. A 10-foot car, when you're standing 10 feet away from it, you say, hey, that's a really cool car. Standing 5 feet away from it, you raise an eyebrow. You're 10 inches away from it, and you look at Brady and go, Brady, you did this work yourself. And I'm proudly say, yes, yes, I did. 10-inch car, you get 10 inches away from that car, and it looks immaculate. I get it. I am never going to make that. But either car still has to be visible. If it's just in the garage, it really is just a 2,000-pound stereo. And that's not really that useful. You've got to get it out there. So it's got to be painted, cleaned up, on the road and being used. And finally, it does have to be somewhat future-proofed, right? So when this car came out, there was a thing called leaded fuel. For some of you, you're going to be like, what? Others of you can talk to somebody that might have been around at this time. But when it was built, it was running on leaded fuel. Now, it was at the transition time, so the engine might have been prepared for unleaded fuel. But I did put a new engine, a newer 90s engine, that's still quite a long time ago, that was prepared for unleaded fuel into it to make sure it was future-proof, so it would keep on running, because I would hazard to say that all of us are going to be challenged to find leaded fuel these days. And now, you're welcome. I've given you a crash course on some of the things I've done on my classic car restoration. And you're wondering, exactly what does this have to do with the GIS show? How is a GIS like a 1966 Mustang? Well, at the end of the day, if we're going to be practical, we have goals that we care about our GIS and our organization. We have expectations that our GIS and our organization needs to meet, whether it's just me as a job and I have goals and expectations of my job, or if I'm the manager of the whole organization and I have goals and expectations that I'm going to meet. And for these goals and expectations to be met, especially in a time of crisis, we still have to meet these things. Reliability, it has to be public. It has to be future-proofed. And so we're going to kind of do a little bit of compare and contrast and kind of drive that down into some, hopefully, practical concepts on these subjects. Now, we only have 30 minutes, so I couldn't go through every subject, but I picked these: reliability, visual, and future-proof. Just like in a car, you don't want to get stranded without wheels. You don't want your GIS to fail at a critical moment. And we all experience this. Now, here's where a catch is. Reliability isn't just a technology, but it's also a people thing. We've run into this. A little over a year ago, we had counties that couldn't answer 811 damage prevention calls. So you had people excavating. They were basically feeling for the things under the ground. And don't take that as I'm calling out counties. The IRS shut down for basically 3 months, and they're still digging out of their backlog. Across the board, organizations ran into a problem where all of a sudden, everybody that was supposed to be working in the office couldn't go to the office. We lost the ability to be reliable. We have to do something about this. Well, how do you be reliable? Well, here's a couple practical things. Remove the single points of failure. Now let's reverse this and say, single points of failure aren't just people. They can also be technologies. I have one server. Well, that server goes down, I fail. But let's take that server one step closer. The damage recovery process of a server, only one person can run. So the server goes down, but you also have a single point of failure in that person. Are you the only person that knows how to do this? Are you the only person that can put those maps together for your field crews to actually do their work in the field? Any of these things are the things you have to think about in reliability, because that's what will fail in the crisis. Documentation. That's super boring. I mean, really, who wants to talk about documentation? I don't. I got a comp sci degree on purpose. Like, I don't want to write documents. We had to take like 2 English courses, right? But oftentimes that documentation is the only way somebody can do their job if you are unavailable. What if you are gone and somebody else is sitting there? How do they do your job? How do they know how to do it? How do they turn on those maps? How do they get that system there? Automation gets a bad rap. Everybody thinks it's this giant megalithic thing. I am going to automate. Super complex. You have to have, 55, PhDs to get it all turned on and all this stuff. But there's a better reality to automation. What automation can do is you can automate really small things that are possibly slightly complex to do, but they're repetitive and part of your world. For instance, say you're downloading data quarterly from the state, districting data or something, right? What if you just automated that process? So it's downloaded, it automatically goes into your data, it's just running and is complete. It can be complex to put that in there, but if it's following basic rules, you could push that to the side, write, I don't know, a Python script or a model builder or whatever, have IT set up one time task, and all of a sudden that goes away and is no longer a complex part of your day and is something that just happens, and make sure it's there. And even if you're not around to run it, it's still happening, possibly. And the final one, to kind of sum that up, simplify where you can. This means it doesn't, and sometimes technology helps you simplify. It can make life easier, but sometimes it also can make it more complex, right? As a ludicrous example, if you're trying to lay LiDAR on top of, drone imagery on top of aerials so you can find manholes, maybe you're overkill. Maybe you send an intern out, just have them put a point on it with a GPS. I don't know. And of course, that's a ludicrous example, but the point is sometimes technology can complicate as much as it can simplify. So think through that as you're going back and trying to simplify the situation. Visibility. Well, let's be honest. If I never let the car come out of the garage, my kids can't break it, right? But also, it doesn't do anything, right? Just like that on our GIS. If nobody can actually touch our GIS, it might be the most beautiful GIS in the world. Look at all my layers. They're perfectly aligned. All the data is right. All the metadata. It's so beautiful. And nobody can use it. So they all have to call me to do anything. We have to get it publicly visible. This was a huge challenge in COVID because when we went into it, so many people had questions and we needed to get them answers. And we had so many challenges in getting those answers. And so to being a little bit of ahead of things, we need to make our systems publicly visible. And the first key is self-service. And the key of self-service is thinking lazy. You have to think, I would rather be fishing than making this map. Now, maybe you don't like fishing, but insert your hobby here. I'd rather be taking a dog for a walk. I'd rather be watching a movie. I'd rather be playing cards. Because if your public, and understand, this isn't just a government thing. This is actually an organization thing. Anybody that runs part of a service where you're collating data for other people is in a service to some version of public. Maybe it's a private organization and you only have 100 users. Those users still have critical questions that need to be answered. And if you're unavailable and they can't get those answers, you're still failing. Okay? So if the public, your public, has a critical question, can they get it answered when I'm unavailable? And even more importantly, can 10,000 of them get the answer if you're unavailable? Because that's really what happened in COVID. All of a sudden, everybody was like, what's the mask rules? Where can I go? How can I be safe? What's the rules of being safe? I don't know. What's the COVID cases? How fast is it spreading? Is there hospital rooms? Is this? They had 10,000 questions and there's 10,000 of them asking them. And we, all of us, were part of the people that were supposed to be answering those questions. Open data is your friend. I get it. We all have secure data. And that's important. We got to keep it secure. But if the data doesn't have to be secure, don't let it be secure. Because the more it is open, the more it's available, the less pressure is put on you in getting that out there. And don't be afraid of mobile apps. My brother-in-law doesn't have a computer, but he sure as heck uses his phone. If you're really going to be publicly visible, if you're down to the mobile device, if you're down to the phone, you're getting it to everybody that needs it, including every kid in the house these days, each person in the house, even when they're not in the house, but they're mobily out. It is the way to go. It gets out there, and mobile apps are much, much, much easier to develop and get put out into the marketplace than they were before. Finally, on future proofing, with people on cars, everybody's like, we have to have a Tesla, or, on my Mustang, I need to, fuel inject it, supercharge it. I have to put in, power brakes, power steering, all of this stuff. Here's the reality. I did have to do some things to future proof it. I did put a new engine in it so it can run unleaded. I put in a dual cylinder master cylinder for the brakes because a single cylinder is a single point of failure. These are things I did do, but it's still running on a carbureted engine. Why? Because you'll still go from point A to point B that way. Future proofing isn't about just throwing every new technology you can on something, but it's about taking on the specific technology that isn't going to last in the future. Just because Wired magazine says something super cool, this is hard on me because I love new technology, but just because they say it's really cool doesn't make it so. What you have to think about is what is actually ending or could end. What do I need that technology for? And this can sometimes be in future proofing. Maybe you're running 20 different technologies and it is a pain. Is there 5 that could be rolled into a different 5? Should I update that work process? How is it working? If I put a technology into it, is this a technology that's going to keep going? And if the technology is keeping going, am I saving 5% and is it worth that change? I don't know. And what is the balance of new complexity versus new improvements? Some technology simplifies, sometimes it complicates, but what it brings is still incredibly valuable. Understand that price you're paying for those technologies and how they're going to be in the future. To pick on one, if you've done any open source, you've run into the fact that you've married yourself to a piece of open source and somewhere along it decided to branch. That one got deprecated. Now it's on a different thing over here and you're trying to follow it. And you're now stuck and you spent 6 months of your life in marrying yourself to this piece of open source that's now deprecated and dead and dying. know the future of the technology you're going, and is it going to be going? And please don't understand, I'm not picking on open source. There's a lot of great things. There's amazing open sources out there that have amazing support, but you need to think that out. What is the support of this in the future? How does that support go forward? How do I keep future proofing that part of the technology? So as we roll down on this little adventure into hopefully a few practical ideas, let's have a few examples that are very practical in our world right now. The top one, what is your project for sunsetting ArcMap and going to ArcPro? Have you thought about this? Are you in the middle of it? Have you already done it? I know I've helped some of you with this, but this is a real future-proofing problem. Esri's being great. They are running ArcMap for as long as humanly possible. But at some point, that 32-bit platform will have to end, and you'll have to be on ArcPro. What's your plan? So, your field crews are needing to use your data. You couldn't go to your office for 1, 4, 6, 8. You're still not in your office months, years, right? How are they getting that data consistently and reliably so they can do their job in the field and keep things safe? On your data recovery plan, here's a challenge for you. Give it to your intern. Go to lunch and see if they can run it. Oh, no. They'll blow up my server. Well, that's scary because you kind of need that to be able to run by anybody, right? And can your public users, no matter where they are or how they are, answer their key questions without you being in the office? Can you go on vacation without getting 3 calls a day? These are critical things that we all have to solve, and they just got thrown into the crucible of a crisis. We will at some day have another crisis, and it will look nothing like COVID because we'll now be prepared for COVID. The new crisis will be a new crisis because that will catch us off guard, right? Now, understand, there will be setbacks. So we're going to end with one story. It's a fun story for you. It's not so fun for me because I'm living it right now. Part of my car job, I put in an independent front suspension. Wipes out the whole front thing, takes out the shock towers, puts on this beautiful bad boy from Heights, and allows my car to be a lot safer, a lot more robust, and drive just tons better. Okay? As part of this, as you can see in this picture, you cut out the shock towers. What's on the shock towers? Well, the engine mounts. Well, that's not a problem. I have new engine mounts. And here's the engine mounts. I conned a friend through beer to weld those up for me. They look fantastic, beautiful, and they're totally too long and the engine won't fit. Yep, that's my world. So I'll be this weekend cutting those in half, grinding all the welding off of them, begging my friend, I don't know if beer will still cover it, to re-weld those up and try again and hopefully measure better. Understand something in all of our world. Murphy will always have his say. However, the dream is worth it. Okay? So, in completion of this, congratulations. Yeah, we survived, right? We are all here. We're all sitting in our organizations. We're all moving forward. And to a certain extent, we're finally getting to see the end of this whole COVID pandemic. Thank you. I'm so glad to see that go. To a certain extent, we get a do-over button because we're still here. Our organizations are still going forward. Some not so lucky, but we get this. So we get the do-over. We get to try again. Hopefully, you've got a few practical ideas in this or a few practical questions you can be asking. Even more importantly, I guarantee there's some amazing experts that are going to be talking in the next few weeks in sessions that will give you a very practical solution that you can move forward. On the takeaways, 3 most important points, always good to have. Single point of failure, really think those out. Man or machine, make it reliable. Get self-service out there. Get it so you don't have to be at your desk just in case you can't be. And finally, look at what's not going to be working in a couple years and be planning to future-proof through that. Hopefully, I did entertain you for 30 minutes. Even better if there's something that really kind of helped you out. Some of you are probably sitting there high five. Well, you know, maybe social distancing is done, so you can do this. High five each other. Maybe it's the first high five in a year. Pat yourself on the back. Pat somebody else in the back and say, man, we're crushing it. We've got all that stuff covered. Others of you may be asking some new questions. But thank you for your time and enjoy the rest of the elevation show. I think I'm, yep, 30 minutes. Yes.
Wow. Thank you, Brady.
You're welcome.
That was, I dug that. Okay. So I think we are scheduled to break now.
Jeannie?
And yeah.
We have time for questions and discussion.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Yes.
Yeah.
Let's do that.
And Dave Murray has had his hand up for.
I saw that, and I hopefully you don't have to go to the bathroom, Dave. You should go.
All right. I'm trying to find the I'm trying to find the Q&A. Oh, there it is. I was like, I can't find it. It's on me.
Yeah.
So Dave, I did unmute you if you want to speak.
Hi, you're muted. Maybe he doesn't want to speak.
Yeah. I know sometimes that hand goes up accidentally and it's hard to figure out how to put it back down.
Yeah.
Happens to me.
Yeah. Are there other questions? If you're not comfortable, you know, talking with the group, you can put them in the chat.
Well, Brady, I would comment that, you know, your discussion about making your data open is something that I have, you know, advocated for a long time. Way back in the day, I worked for the Bureau of Land Management in Pinedale. And I always would say that your data doesn't do anybody any good if, you know, if you're not getting it out there and it's getting used. And it's much more valuable when it's getting used. You know, the quality of the data when people are using it, you know, people, I mean, you have to be willing to get that feedback that, hey, this sucks, or, you know, you got to fix this. But again, that's the only way you're going to improve, or, you know, it's one way to improve your data. And I think, you know, the push for open data, in, you know, the buzz of open data the last few years is much to our benefit, and should save us all time from dealing with those data requests. And at our NISJIT conference last year, one of the best quotes, and I might not get it exactly, but data, like true love, only has value when it is freely given away.
and there's super truth to that, but we couldn't have had a more poignant experience of that over the last year, when all of a sudden you're kicked out of your office, you can't get to your computer, you can't get to your servers, you can't get to anything, and all of a sudden people don't have your data, and they can't call you and ask you for it.
Yeah.
It's just, if it can be open, you've got to make it open. And the thing is there's tools now, you know, whether you're, no matter what side of the fence you're on what type of technology platform you want to go on, open layers you can be sharing, Esri you can be sharing, they all have public tools now, all have methods of getting that data out there and available and capable of being used by your organization. So it's hard to, something we've really all got to think about, because I joke, I jest that it's being lazy, but the reality is it's just being responsible.
And like you said, nobody likes to write metadata, but another favorite saying of mine is excuses are like back ends. Everyone has them and they all stink. So don't duck metadata and write your metadata so that you can get it out there and again, make the data usable. And yeah, technology is certainly not the issue anymore. It's definitely, it's people. It's a people problem. So I'm seeing some comments in the chat, and if I can remind you to please use the Q&A, not the chat. But Brady, I'll go ahead and ask this question. Oh, there we
go. I can see it. I can see both, actually. Surprising, I guess, because I'm here.
Good. Yeah, my bad. I told people to use chat. I should have said Q&A.
Yeah. So, hey, thanks, Carl. Yeah. So we're not a drone company. I try not to fly drones. There's some really amazing companies that are doing that. I think actually one of the sponsors here, or a few of them, probably mess with that a lot more than me. But how it's changing things is the affordability of the data and how you can start improving your data, being able to stitch together mosaics, use optical imagery to start creating 3D representations on the concepts of digital twins, all of this stuff, because let's be honest, once you get the drones going, they're incredibly affordable in comparison to so many other ways that we had to collect data. So we're generally a visualization company. When I talk about spatial and reality technologies, we're taking that data that the drones, that you've collected through various methods, through automated sensors, all of this stuff. And we're creating complex visualizations of that. And so how the drones have affected that is we have better data to do that with. You can get there. Now, it doesn't mean it solves every problem. Like I went through the process of saying, well, be careful of what technologies you take on. Sometimes it's still easier just to send somebody out and collect the points because the points are there and you're overcomplicating because a drone can only fly on certain days in certain areas in certain ways and stuff like that. But in general, how it's helping us is it's made a very affordable mass collection system that people are starting to use effectively to create better aerials, to create more recent aerials, almost real-time aerials, and various other methods of doing that. Does that kind of answer your question, Carl? Yay, nay? Awesome. Any other questions? I made myself a terrible cup of coffee. I really need to throw that out.
That's bad.
Yeah.
So Brady, one thing, I guess, just because we have time and it's kind of fun to talk about these things. You talked about, looking at building your technology kind of for the future. And you certainly had done this with ARGIS. And I, remember years ago seeing the demo of your virtual reality solutions. And it's, you certainly have been pushing the envelope. And one of the things that we discuss a lot in NISJIC is the idea of foresight, of being aware of trends that are, coming so that we're not blinded by them, we're ready for them. And there's a difference between that and saying that we're predicting the future, but just being aware of what's happening and what could happen so that you're making deliberate decisions to, build the future that is preferable. Excuse me. And, what do you see as the trends in GIS, the trends in technology looking forward a few years?
Well, I'm going to eat humble pie. Yeah, in a question. I'm going to eat humble pie and say I was dead wrong when I thought AR was going to launch 5 years ago when I started my company, because I thought it was going to launch in 2 years from then. I was wrong. But I'm going to make a new bold prediction. There is true adoption, true production in a lot of the realities technologies, and I'm sorry, when I say that, I mean like augmented reality or virtual reality or mixed reality, the XRs, stuff like that. There's real traction happening in those fronts in the last 6 months, and it's starting to expand and go beyond some various technologies. So I do think they're going to start impacting our the world of GIS, the more of the realities, whether it's tabletop or augmented reality in the field or whatnot. I do think that machine learning is going to continue to dive in and start allowing some of the more complex analyses to be run in a more effective way. I think that's going to continue to happen, but more importantly, you're also going to be starting to use that in the creation of a more complete data model. So people are starting to look at data in 3D. People are starting to look at their GIS data in 3D, and how do you get there and how do you collect that? You're going to need some help of some rendering monsters, some machine learning, and all of these other technologies. So I think they're going to be coalescing into a lot of improved data, which is going to improve the systems at the other end. So I see that we're going to be seeing a lot more accurate Z and a lot more accurate models starting to appear more and more over the next couple of years. That's a short answer. Is that something you're thinking?
Yeah, I agree. With digital twins and building information management, I think, that's all. People want that 3D rendering, more a real life experience. And so, I think you're definitely onto something there. Yep. Have you seen an increase? I'm guessing you've seen an increase in demand for your solutions.
Yeah, over the last, I'd like to say it was 3 years ago, but it wasn't. No, over the last year or so, there's definitely an increase. But even more importantly than that, because I didn't pick the fastest adopting industries on the planet, and so there's still a lot of questions, it's applauding forward process, but the solutions that are coming together are more thought out. They're more real production. They're more valuable this year than they have been in the past. They used to be more playing, like, wouldn't it be neat if we could see what can happen, right? And they're like going, no, we're actually going to implement this. We're going to actually have it doing the Q&A test and checks of this. We're going to actually be giving this to, you know, people that are untrained, and they're going to use this to solve this problem for us because we don't have trained people to do it. And so they have a better workflow. That's the thing I'm really seeing this year, is that the complete ROI workflow that's attached to the newer technologies, especially in the realities, is improving. So
we have a question for you in the Q&A as well as the chat. Which would you like to answer first, Brady?
I see both now. I'll answer. Hey, Deb. That's a tough one. There's laws that kind of guide us towards both open data. And so I'll repeat the question so other people can hear it. How do you balance open data, public access versus security, in particular when looking at utilities? This is probably an answer. So I guess the overarching answer I give is make it as public, make it the maximum public that is allowed, always. And you're going to find yourself doing less work. What that means is if you're, if it's the water system and you really can't share that with the public because that's under the Security Act, make it shared with everybody in your organization that you absolutely can, because then at least that field crew can get to it, right? So push the open data as far to the maximum as you can, because you do have to secure some things by law, and just some things by reasonable thought process. I mean, you don't want to, you know, tell everybody you're, you know, the place to hook up their computers to hack the entire network because your telecom system is, you know, branching right here, and this is where you connect to the fiber lines, and, you know, you've got to hide some stuff, right? That totally makes sense, and you've got to stay secure. But my mantra, or what I try to teach people, is maximize the public as much as you can. You know, you don't have to hide your tree layer, right? So make it public. Sometimes that's kind of a fun thing because you can find that somebody does something really cool with it and expands what your data's legs have. So that would be kind of my answer to that. I can't tell you exactly everything because, you know, some things are federal mandates, while others are just local regulations or local decisions that are made on what is secure and what isn't and what you can do. But that would be the way I'd go with that. Second, my IT department thinks GIS can be run on a 66 horsepower 1961 VW bug. How can I get them to see the light? That's a
ongoing battle, Dave.
Ongoing. Yeah. Honestly, there is an answer, because I just saw I gave a recommendation for a GIS assessment that I recently worked on. One of the things you might be able to do to dodge them a little bit is think cloud. I know that sounds like a catchphrase of today, and I don't say cloud for everything because it doesn't always solve the problems, but you get to borrow other people's horsepower then. So use Esri's horsepower or Rackspace's or Microsoft or Amazon or whoever's horsepower instead of your own, and for a possibly slighter cost. You can get creative with that as well, because say it is like you have 5 or 6 processes that are really the crusher that you have to do. Turn the server on, run those processes, turn it off, you know, get the answer, and then visualize the answer in your 61 VW. All right. It is tough because you've got to somehow get them to spend a little bit of money. The other trick that always works is become indispensable. Make your data a key point of how the people who have the money in your organization see their organization's information. Because once you're there, once you have those budget makers' eye on what you're doing, it's amazing how quickly you'll get more budget. I don't have the answer for that for your organization, but I'm guessing it's probably commissioners of some sort. So something to think about. It is a tough one, though. Hope that helped a little bit. Well, I think we're well, no, I guess we started a little bit after, so we're knocking on
Good.
a minute or
Yeah.
two. But
And yeah, I think Karen and I were able to get all the opening comments and whatnot in under 10 minutes. So yeah, you started a little bit early.
sweet.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that comment about the cloud. It's getting much easier to do that. Just share links and AGOL. I haven't used the new one, but I've been keeping up on some of the posts to the GIS Colorado listserv about the updates and whatnot. So I'm really excited to try some of that stuff. Though the group layering and whatnot hasn't been supported, and
Mhm.
it's such a pain. So
Yeah.
glad that they've implemented that. Any other question? Oh, yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That should be cool. That should be very cool.
The Ford F-150.
But it's gonna be
Great.
cool.
For connecting, I believe it's going to be unveiled. The new electric F-150 is going to be
Yep.
unveiled at an event with Biden tonight. Isn't that correct?
Nice.
Yep.
So
Does that mean he has to drive it for the next 4 years? Or no? Is that
I don't know.
is that not, he's not contractually obligated to drive a Ford?
Yeah, I don't know. The last, yeah, no, I don't know. He should. He should. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a Ford. It's American. Come on, right?
Right.
So,
Nice.
So,
All right.
Brady, if I could, I would just add one more comment to Dave's question. So, thinking again back to the 3D rendering, it's always fun to show people, the bright, shiny objects.
mhm.
And so, Dave, it might be, a strategy to show them, some online renderings of, digital twins or, some of Brady's stuff and show them like, this is what we could do with GIS if we had the hardware to support it. Like, you can't do this on a 1961 Volkswagen Bug, but we could do it on a electric F-150. And so, just show them that bright, shiny object and let them see that you are severely underpowered to be able to do those things that technology allows you to do now. But
Definitely.
good luck.
Definitely. You can sometimes, strategically use what you, what gets them excited to possibly use that to benefit your organization. There's nothing wrong with that.
Nope.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Brady.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you for the
you.
time. I appreciate
Wonderful
the honor to help kick off your show. I look forward to attending as much as I can and seeing what awesome things are happening all across the state and the area.
We are honored to have you join us. Go ahead, Jeannie.
Oh no, yeah, I was just gonna say thank you so much. I really enjoy when we get those comparisons that aren't quite GIS, but it kind of helps put things in perspective sometimes. But yeah, we are a little bit ahead of schedule. And so we're gonna go ahead and break till 10 o'clock. So you can go ahead and refill your coffee and do what you need to do. And we'll see you back here at 10.
Well, thank you for the time.
Yeah.
Thank you, Brady. Go make yourself a good
See ya.
cup of coffee.
Yes.
Yeah,
go
that's
get
what I'm going to
yourself
do
some
at the time.
good
I'm going
coffee.
to chuck this garbage. This is bad coffee. I don't know how I did that. All right. Take care, everybody. It was great to spend time.
You too.
Next up is you, Genie, right?
Yep. Are you gonna make me introduce myself?
Yeah. I mean, do you need an introduction?
I don't know. Probably. People are gonna wonder why I'm just talking at them. Yeah. So the next thing we have coming up, excuse me, is State of GIS Colorado, and I think it's worth mentioning why I'm talking to you about it instead of Pete. We've recently had an election, and the board restructured. Pete is still on the board, but I'm the new chair, and Jackie Phipps is my co-chair. Darcy Kilpack is the treasurer. Laura Atkinson is the secretary. And we still have all of our supporting board members as well. But I will get to that in this update for you guys. And I know we have it scheduled for 25 minutes, but we'll see. I don't think it's going to take quite that long. Let me go ahead and start sharing my screen. If I can figure out how to do that. We use Teams all the time, so this switching over to Zoom has kind of thrown me off a little bit. Let's see. Okay, can you guys all see my screen?
Looks good.
Cool, cool. And just please let me know if you can't hear me as we're going through this. Hopefully we have no glitches, but let me just kind of, I want to be able to see the chat. So, if you guys have questions or anything, please post it to the Q&A section or the chat. I can see both of those, but probably want to stick with Q&A. That's the protocol moving forward. So first of all, good morning, and thank you for joining us for the Elevations Geospatial Summer Series. I want to extend a huge thank you to the WyGEO and the GIS Colorado groups for their time and effort to collaborate and put this event together for us. And I appreciate this opportunity to fill you in on the state of GIS Colorado. So many of you guys that are joining us this morning are longtime advocates of the GIS Colorado mission. So thank you for your continued and unconditional support. We work really hard to bring you resources and events that provide professional benefits. And if this is your first introduction to our organization, I want to go ahead and take a minute and on behalf of GIS Colorado, familiarize you with the group, what we do, and how we do it. We are a nonprofit organization of GIS professionals and users that focus on the status and level of effectiveness of GIS use in the state of Colorado. We pride ourselves in being your geospatial connection, and we strive to uphold 4 core values: communicate, educate, engage, and inspire GIS professionals everywhere. We do this through proactive and strategic communication. We get involved by sharing GIS Colorado as a resource with colleagues and students that might not only benefit from what we have to offer, but contribute to our efforts. Join GIS Colorado on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn to share our mission and message. We also provide low-cost educational opportunities that promote the integration and application of geospatial knowledge. Participation counts towards GISP certification and builds invaluable professional networks. In 2020, we were fortunate to host one in-person event back in January. For those of you that were able to join us at Boulder Open Space, you didn't know it then, but you marked a little piece of history. It would be our last in-person get-together as a community for quite some time. But we live in a virtual world, and to quote the amazing Peter Parker, with great power comes great responsibility. And as an organization, we felt a duty to continue engaging with our community and providing encouragement, no matter how complex it might become to do so. So we quickly transitioned to provide the same quality training and meetings in an online platform. This has led to fantastic new content for the new GIS Colorado YouTube channel. Well, it's been around for a while, it's not quite new, but we didn't have anything to put on it until we went virtual. So subscribe to access trainings and quarterly meetings anytime. Some resources are only available with a paid membership, so join GIS Colorado today to take advantage of all that we have to offer. We strive to engage and inspire a vibrant geospatial community through the exchange of ideas, networking, and outreach. One of the ways that we accomplish this is by providing a free geospatial listserv where GIS professionals from all over the world are welcome to share job opportunities, technical roadblocks, and their accomplishments in the field. And despite the efforts of the universe to slow our progress, we have remained busy working hard to live up to these 4 core values. We recently had our 2021 elections to fill 3 vacancies on the GIS Colorado board. And I do want to assure you I can do math, because you see 4 names here. I just mentioned 3 vacancies, but we did have 1 board member step down. So that's why you see 4 names here. So please join me in welcoming and congratulating the newest members of our board: Victoria McKinnon, Anna Reiling, Sarah Rollins, and Nick View. And in 2020, we also rolled out the updated GIS Colorado logo that you see here. This has all been a big lead up to the new GIS Colorado website that will be live, I want to say in the next few weeks, but they tell me it might be a month, but it's coming. We will have that. And when it becomes available, we will post an announcement to the GIS Colorado listserv. So if you're not a member, it's free. Go to giscolorado.org/listserv and join today. Another goal is to engage the community through an increased presence on social media. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, join us on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter, and give us a good reason to start an Instagram account. And we can start posting pictures at some of these live events that we're going to be starting back up, beginning with our summer event in Redstone in August. And once you've subscribed, share and retweet the GIS Colorado posts. One of the positive things to come out of the last year is an increase in training opportunities. You would not believe how much easier it is to organize a virtual event versus an in-person. It's allowed us to collaborate with organizations beyond a day's drive or whoever happens to be in town at the time of our meeting to provide a training. It's much more difficult to organize these things and coordinate in-person events. Last week, we went to Canada and had a great half-day GeoCortex workshop provided by our friends at Vertigis out of Victoria, BC. And we have many more events scheduled throughout the summer. So check out the full list at events at giscolorado.org/events. And before we wrap up here, I would like to take just a minute and get your feedback with a poll. Let's see if I can manage to do that. All right, I'm going to try and figure out how to get my screen back. Here we go. Let's see. I'm going to go ahead and launch it now. Hopefully you guys can see that. Does everyone have access to the poll yet? No? Yes? It says it started.
Yeah, I can see the poll.
Okay, great. Can you access it and vote?
Yes, I
Okay.
can.
What about everyone else?
I don't know if everyone else can. I'm sure they can.
You've got a little more
I'm
elevated
just
status,
confirming myself.
right? So we're just going to hear from Nick today. Everyone's opinion is important. Cool. I can see those votes coming in. Thank you for participating. And I'm sorry, Zoom doesn't support open-ended questions. So if you have more information that you'd like to provide on any one of these poll questions, please add it to the Q&A. Let's talk about it. I'm going to leave it open for a little bit longer. We got 36 people on here, and a little under half have been able to share their opinion. There's no right or wrong answers. We can't see who votes which way, so feel free to let us have it in this multiple choice. We've really added to the structure of our organization, added a lot more trainings this year. And so that's kind of the reason behind these questions. We want to know if we are inundating you with too much, or if you'd like to see more, or if you have ideas for things that we should be providing and we're not, by all means. Okay. And I'm going to just kind of let that go for a few minutes longer so you guys can answer some of those questions. And just kind of leave you with this. If you would like to be a bigger part of our organization and support our activities, please consider becoming a paid member. It's $25 a year and it helps advance our industry in ways that can only be imagined. Join the GIS Colorado listserv. Detailed information can be found at giscolorado.org/listserv, and or click the link, the listserv link at the top of the website page. Contact us at questions@giscolorado.org with feedback and ideas to help guide our activities and spark motivation. And be sure to join us for the opening social tonight from 5 to 7 Mountain Time, and save the date for Elevations 2022. We are hoping to have that in Steamboat Springs next May. And I see we've got quite a few votes coming in here, so I'm just going to go ahead and leave it open for another minute or so. And it has truly been a pleasure to help facilitate and participate in this event as a GIS Colorado board member. Thank you for this time to update you on the state of GIS Colorado, and enjoy the rest of Elevations. And if you have any questions, I think we have time to answer some of those. So. No questions. That's always good, right? All right, I think that's it for me then. I'm going to go ahead and end this polling and hand it back over to Nick.
It looks like we got one question.
Oh, we do.
A couple
questions.
Oh
no, here they come. They were focused on the poll. Okay, let's see. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen and open up our Q&A. Okay.
You want me to read them off for you?
Yeah, if you don't mind it.
Let's see. The first one by Carl. I'm looking to increase my participation with GIS Colorado and look forward to all of number 2, number 3, and number 4. Till I get a job, my attendance will be more open. In many ways, I'm virtual out, but do realize its importance. But with the world opening up again, I'm always up for the social aspect. Let me know how I can be more inclusive.
Okay. Yeah, make sure that you've joined the listserv, Carl, because we do post all of our events on those. We hit it, I don't want to say pretty hard, but we do. We try to keep you guys informed through the listserv. So make sure that you have joined. It's free. You can customize how you receive those emails from the listserv. You can either get them as a weekly digest, or you can get each one individually. I will say this, though, I did help someone work through this over the weekend. And when you get them as a digest, you don't see what the emails are about. And so getting them as an individual email is a little more useful because you get that subject line. So you can see very quickly if it's something that is pertinent to you or not. So yeah, but either way, you can You can customize all of that. It's free. We really encourage you guys to sign up. It's how to get all the latest and greatest on what we're doing and how to get involved. We do have an in-person that we're having in Redstone in August 5th and 6th. And I think we will be opening that up to, we left the registration open just for members. That's another perk of being a GIS Colorado member is, you know, with the reintroduction of in-person gatherings, we still have to keep that number down. And so we open that up to members first and then give that a couple weeks, and we'll be opening it up to the non-members here next week. Yeah, and I think we might be capped at about 25, but if we can find an outdoor venue, we can certainly spread out and host more people for that. Let's see. Did that answer your question, Carl? Hopefully. Yeah, just
Yep.
okay,
He
good.
says yes. All right.
Okay.
All right. And then
Is
the
it
next
okay
one.
if Wyoming joins?
Yeah.
Oh,
Can
Brian.
people from Wyoming join?
Of
So
course
that's
you
a good
can.
question. I was wondering the same
Yeah,
thing.
of course you can. I'm a member of your guys' list or your WyGEO. I'm a paid member. I'm also a paid member of UGIC and the New Mexico GIC and Montana. I mean, you know, and it's a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, that's excessive. But you know what, I like what I do, and I like staying informed of what other folks are doing. And you know, going back to Brady's presentation, some of these people are doing stuff with the same data that you never even would have thought of. So I do like to stay involved. So yes, you can absolutely join GIS Colorado if you live in Wyoming. We encourage
That's
that.
a good one. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Okay, next one. Any update on the Colorado State GIO role from Brian?
I don't know if they have filled the GIO role specifically. I do know they found a new chief data officer, Amy Baca, I believe. You can find her on LinkedIn. I don't know her personally. I haven't talked to her, and we were working very closely with Tony Filipiak, but he's not at the state anymore either. So we don't really have a contact with the OIT office. I'm sorry I don't have better news for you on that front, Brian, but if you hear of any updates over there, please let us know. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
and then next one we've got, are you going to share the poll results? Or is that
yeah,
going
I mean,
deep in our database?
no, this kind of goes back. I mean, as a not-for-profit organization, I feel like we're obligated to share these results with you guys. We want to get your feedback on how we're doing, and we want to share that with you so that you can kind of see where we're at and and kind of keep us accountable. Are we addressing some of these concerns or issues or ideas that people bring forward? So yeah, absolutely.
Okay, and then looks like we got one in the chat.
Okay.
From Dave, data coordination is an area that all of us are facing. How is GISCO helping in this area?
You said that was in the chat.
Yeah, from Dave.
Data coordination. So, I mean, our role has never really been to acquire, host, or share data. Our role has always been more to share the resources. So if you're looking for data, by all means, post it to the listserv. You know, I've seen quite a few of those kinds of posts, like I'm looking for such and such information from the Forestry Service or something like that. And the GIS Colorado community will hopefully be able to point you in the right direction for that. But we just don't have the hardware, the bandwidth, or anything like that to host any data to coordinate. But hopefully, does that kind of answer your question, Dave, as far as data coordination? I feel like there's several different ways to go about doing that. And right now, it's just kind of putting you in touch with the right people is our main role.
Okay, and it looks like we got another one from Jeff. How does a vendor arrange for a workshop? Is that Assuming for this event, or are we talking about workshops in general?
Just in general. For this event, I think we might be
I think we're booked up.
Mhm. But if for GIS Colorado, if you just send your inquiry to questions@giscolorado.org, we can respond to you and work with you to put that on our calendar. We do try to get our events scheduled a year out, just so we're not scrambling at the time of, and we have good, it allows us that time to get some good content, presentations, workshops, and what have you. But yeah, send your info to questions@giscolorado.org, Jeff, and yeah, we can make that happen.
Okay, that looks like all the questions we've got so far.
Okay, and I did reopen the polling. I noticed that Carl had commented that he forgot to submit his, so I reopened it. I'm going to go ahead and end it now, if that's okay.
Yeah, I think
going once, going twice.
Wait.
The poll is over. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah. Well, thank you, everybody. I really appreciate the time to update you, and hopefully we will see a handful of you in Redstone. We something worth mentioning. We are going to continue with virtual events, so that way, I realize we are all virtual out at this point, but I do feel like it's very important to offer that hybrid when we can for people that are not able to join us in person for whatever reason. So thank you.
Okay, and I guess we'll go to the program here, and it looks like we've got Karen Rogers from WyGEO up next to talk about the state of WyGEO. We all know Karen. She's the president of WyGEO, and she's going to talk for a little while about what WyGEO's been up to. And I guess I'll just hand it over to Karen if you're ready.
I am. Hopefully I've got my Prezi working. So good morning, everyone. And thank you for, does that work? Oh, hang on. Let me get rid of this background image. It's messing with me. There we go. Now can you see it?
Yes, I can see it. That's neat.
Thanks. Yeah, the magic of Prezi. So yeah, good morning. And again, thanks for joining us. It's nice to see so many people from both sides of our fence and from other states, in fact. And so I'm going to update you on what's been going on with WyGEO, the Wyoming Geospatial Organization. And, I thought I had covered all the bases, but I really appreciate some of the things that Genie covered that I did not put in my presentation. So I'll try to cover those things too. First, I just wanted to kind of remind us why we're in this business. And so I found this quote from, our buddy Jack Dangermond, and I'll read it in case you have old eyes and can't see the text. And so GIS in its digital manifestation of geography goes beyond just the science. It provides us with a framework and a process for applying geography. It brings together observational science and measurement and integrates it with modeling and prediction, analysis and interpretation, so we can understand things. So yesterday I was on this career panel for women in STEM, and one of the questions that students asked was, what's your biggest motivation? And my response was knowing that GIS really can change the world. It has the power to improve how we manage our resources, plan things, work together, and try to just make things better. And I'm truly inspired by the power of GIS, and I love being a GIS professional, and I think we have such a great community. So hats off to all of us as being GIS professionals. So one of the coolest things I think we have done this year with WyGEO is we have an awesome new logo, thanks to Jason Boucher, one of our board members. And so we have the bison head by itself, which is of course following the, oh, help me now, it's Grand Prismatic Spring, right? And then we have the logo with the letters. And so we just are in love with our new logos, and we are in the process of creating some new swag to get it out there so that we can all wear it with pride and show that we are, you know, supporters of WyGEO. So look for that very soon, imminently. And again, I just added this slide because Genie mentioned her board members, and we do have new board members who took office starting in January. And so I'm going to thank them for their willingness to serve on our board and go through who those people are. So of course there's me as president, and our vice president is Brian Clarkson out of Cody. Our secretary is Nicholas Case. He is the wizard behind the curtain. Our treasurer is Karen Bowman out of Laramie. For the Northwest region, Denise Dowell is our director there. For the Southwest region, Destry Dearden. For the Northeast region, Jason Boucher. For the Southeast, Brian Robeson. And then Katrina Patton is our director at large. So thanks to all of you for serving on the board of directors. You guys are awesome, and you're doing amazing work. So thanks for serving with me. So like I said, Nick is our wizard behind the curtain, and he has done a recent overhaul to our website. So if you haven't gone there recently, please do. You'll see that it has, you know, nice new fresh look and feel. And you know, it's not just cosmetic. Nick has been doing a lot of upgrades to the back end as well. So he has really improved our membership database, how we track who's a paid member, and we have you know, professional members, associate members, and what we have built in is a member login. And so once you are a paid professional member, then there is content for members only. And we're going to be building that, of course, with conference resources from this, and as we go through and record proceedings and presentations at future conferences, we'll have those recordings available to members only through the website. So and we hope to, you know, make that as plug that as a benefit of membership, as you get to access stuff that only members can access. And again, our membership is the same, $25 a year. So hopefully nothing to break your bank. Sorry, I'm going to blow this up because I'm having trouble reading my own slide. It's so small. Talk about old eyes. We do have the option for automatic renewal, so you don't have to remember every year if you've paid or not. It will just, if you set it up that way, it can just automatically renew. And the financials are done through PayPal, but you don't have to use PayPal to use. You can use your, you know, whatever credit card or payment option you want. Again, there's a groovy new facelift. And again, just because we're geeks, Nick has optimized and automatic updates, so it's just a lot easier to maintain it. And I think it's important to share that, because one thing that we have really struggled with over the last few years is how to maintain operations and accounts through different incarnations of the board. You know, as people come in and out of being president and treasurer and secretary, how do we maintain, you know, the infrastructure of our documents and, you know, the website, so that it's easy to pass from one person to the next. And so Nick has done a lot to do that, so that it's easier for the next person who walks into that role. So I can't thank Nick enough for all he has done for that. And then one thing we've added is we were contacted by the Wyoming Geological Association, which if you look for their website, it's WyGEO, a little confusing, but they asked us if we would be willing to enter into like a sister society agreement. And so we have a section on our website now for sister societies, where we just work together to promote our events, and they have monthly workshops. In fact, they have a workshop or a lunch meeting on presentation on Friday. This Friday's is on by a geologist from Utah, talking about the, you know, ancient geology and geomorphology of Southwest Wyoming. So, you know, cool stuff that we're just helping each other promote, again, because, you know, we don't have a lot of people to pull from, so the more we can spread the wealth, the better. And so I think next we'd like to approach like the Wyoming Planning Association and certainly GISCO, and you know, again, just try to cross-pollinate and help spread our words to more people. So again, I encourage you to go to wygeo.org and check out our new website. And the homepage, I didn't share this either, but I noticed it when I went to the website this morning, that we did a GIS Day video last year, and so that's on the webpage. And of course, we have a bunch of other things promoted there. So, and one of them that again, I don't think we have it on the website. Actually, we need to do that. This reminds me of all the things we have yet to do. We just got the details worked out with WyGISC to have an ArcGIS Online account specifically for paid WyGEO members. So if you are, without the means to do any web GIS yourself, you can apply for an ArcGIS Online account through WyGEO, and you can make your own content. I think every person who gets an account is limited to 500 credits a year, which should be plenty. And so again, you're welcome to take advantage of that. And hopefully, again, as a board, we haven't quite figured out, now that we have this functionality, what do we want to do with it? But that's just another thing that we have on our list of things to do. So another thing that took a lot of oxygen out of our organization over the last year is grant money that we got from National Geographic. And so about a year and a half ago, we got $8,000 from National Geographic. And the idea was to do training for teachers. And the idea was to use the grant money to offset their travel costs and to pay for their substitute teacher fees, to make it easier for them to miss a day of school to come and get trained on how to use GIS. And we only were able to get one of those actually implemented in Cody. And of course, then everything was shut down. And so then it was like scrambling. Well, what do we do? We have this money and we have interest. We had people signed up, but we couldn't do it in person. So we went through the process. We finally, and then we didn't know how teachers would react to more virtual stuff. And it just was hard to figure out what to do. So we recorded 3 different videos that are about 55 minutes each. And teachers have to request access to the videos. And then once they watch the video, they have to fill out a completion form, and then they get a gift card simply for watching the video. And then once we have enough to do a door prize, then we'll do a door prize for a higher amount gift card. And so we have been doing this and trying to promote it, and we certainly aren't having as much participation as we'd like, but I understand that teachers are just swamped and overwhelmed still, and probably exhausted at this point. So I think it's understandable, but we certainly encourage you, if you are interested, or if you know any other teachers would like to pass the word on, I think they can get information for that through the website. And we would certainly love to, we have a lot of gift cards to give out. So spread that word and encourage people to watch those videos. And as a result, so today is the deadline for the ArcGIS Online high school and middle school competition. And I'm really happy to share that this year we had 7 projects submitted for Wyoming. So last year we had, I think, 4. The first year we participated, we didn't have any. So we're almost doubling from last 2 years ago. Well, no, it was last year to this year. So today we will be sending off our results to Esri for who are kind of the finalists. And the board went through, a lot of the board members went through and judged those projects. And it's just so cool to see what high school students and one middle school student, how they put things together, how they formulate their thoughts in the media that they use, and just how proficient they can be with the technology. So, and we will hopefully showcase those on our website too. So keep your eye out for that. And if anyone is here from Esri, I would definitely like to thank Esri, because they, give states $1,000 to give award money and just to promote it from year to year. So they're very generous with that. So one thing that I am particularly proud of that we have done in WyGEO under my leadership is finally approve an investment policy. And so, like GISCO, we are a nonprofit, and we have amassed a nice nest egg over the last, 13 years. And because thanks to my work with NISJIC, it just struck me that we really should do something with that money so that it does more for us in the membership. And so we worked with an investment broker, and we shared with him who we are and what we do and what's important to us and what we want to accomplish. And so he worked with us to generate a very conservative investment policy. And so we approved it, and I think we're still finishing up the paperwork to get it, the funds actually transferred and start investing that money. But still in all, I think it's a very wise move to have that money, in again, very conservative accounts, but to earn some interest so that that money is doing something for us. So if you're interested in learning more about that, of course, we're open to share what's going on and what we're doing, what our plans are. We certainly did not invest all of our money. We have, a chunk still in cash so that we have it on hand. And, but we did, have a finance committee and talked about it and approved it. And there was a lot of discussion. So we finally got it done. And again, I would like to thank the board for their work on that. So I have just one slide on state governments because, I think it's important, and it goes back to the question last session about data sharing. So, and I, kind of wear two hats from being the enterprise GIS and data visualization coordinator for the state and being the president of WyGEO. I have kind of my foot on both sides of the fence. And it's been interesting with our governor 2 years in and our new CIO, and he took a long time to get the charters redone for our advisory board and for the technical advisory group. And we were just getting those finalized. And then just yesterday, we got the bad news that our CIO resigned. And so we're not quite sure where that leaves us. We've been told just to continue that everything is going to carry on, but it certainly, will probably slow things down, even though it was, the train was just leaving the station, but there we have another setback. So, but the idea is, the advisory board is comprised of 5 agency directors and 1 person from the TAG and 1 county assessor and a few ex officio members and somebody else from the GIS community. So it's, a varied group, and their goal is to discuss budgetary needs and data standards and get recommendations from the technical advisory group. And so, hopefully that continues on as the charters have just been edited and they weren't quite approved, but, again, hopefully next meeting they'll be approved. So, and we will be rolling out soon. WyGEO is going to be doing, and they're actually doing a presentation the last week of our conference on the next generation of our GeoHub, which is our clearinghouse. So please participate in that, because that'll be a good session to learn about what plans we are putting into place, what discussions we're having about how to maintain our clearinghouse and what it will look like going forward. So, and as Genie said, we are very excited to be planning a fall conference in person. And so this fall in September, the 8th through the 10th, we're planning a conference in Cody, Wyoming. And what we have decided as a board is we will not be charging a registration fee for our paid members. So we will waive the registration fee as an enticement to get you there. And we will have 1 day of training the day before the conference actually starts, and then a day and a half of presentations and talks and stuff. So put that on your calendars and keep your eyes open for that. And we'll be putting out a call for papers here pretty soon. And then again, as Genie said, a year from now or so, we will have our spring conference in person in Steamboat, and that is the Elevations Geospatial Summit, with WyGEO and GISCO, and that's May 11th through the 13th in Steamboat. And with that, I would just add a thank you, but also we've been, as part of this continuity of operations between, incarnations of the board, honestly, we have been struggling with, we have our Facebook account, but we are not very good at maintaining it, admittedly. And then we have been struggling with our Twitter account, just because between my changes in email, I foolishly didn't maintain that password. And so it's just hard. And I think we aren't even on Instagram because I'm old and we haven't gotten that far. We've talked about in our last board meeting, we talked about creating an Instagram account, and but it's kind of funny. It seems like most GIS people in Wyoming are not big social media users or followers. And so, I think that would be beneficial to entice, younger users and members. I don't know how useful that is for us old hacks. But like Jeannie said, and I'll come back to Chris's or Carl's comment. We do have a Google group listserv as well. And again, one thing that she reminded me of is I don't know that we have an option on our website of how to sign up for that. So something to take a look at. But we do have, our own Google group listserv. And so if you do want to become a member of that, then email our WyGEO info@wygeo.org, I think. Nick, I'm not doing a very good job. But so yeah, because we do send out a lot of information through that too. And the listserv, I would say, being included in the Google group is free. Anyone can be added to that listserv. You don't have to be a paid member. And of course you should be, because it's only $25. So with that, there's a lot of time left for me as well. And I would certainly be happy to take any questions. And what Carl's comment is in the chat is there are too many social media options, and he's overwhelmed by them, and LinkedIn has its own social platform. So yeah, I mean, there are a lot of options, and it is hard to keep up with everything. And again, I just get the sense from the Wyoming user group that not too many people care about social media. So
we do have a couple questions here if you're ready to take some.
Sure.
First one's from Deb. Are the video / teacher training available to all excuse me, or is meaning outside of Wyoming, or is that a Wyoming teacher program?
We talked about it being, the original plan was it to be just for Wyoming teachers, because that's who we were, targeting for the in-person classes. But we have had, to be honest, not a very strong attendance. And so this afternoon, we actually have a board meeting, and we could certainly discuss opening it up more widely. Again, in that conference that I was in yesterday, a question was asked if students could take the training. And I was like, well, I don't see why not, because, they can learn about GIS and learn about the tools that Esri makes it freely available to them. So, in my opinion, the money that we've gotten from National Geographic is free money, and it's sitting here in gift cards unused. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm up for opening it up, but we would have to discuss it as a board.
Okay, we got a comment by Wayne. He says, said it in the joint web presentation by WyGEO Association and WyGEO and on North Slope Alaskan dinosaurs. Well done, and thanks for sending the link.
You're welcome, Wayne. I'm glad you liked it. I wasn't able to join that one, but I do plan on joining this Fridays.
Okay, and then this one's from Carl. Good question for both Karen and Jeannie. I thought of as I go through my extensive GIS resources I've discovered over the last 6 months is GISCO and WyGEO active in ERISA's GIS Core project at giscore.com. I've joined them, but do not seem to find enough opportunities here in Colorado, unless I'm not digging hard enough.
So
go ahead, Karen. I've got thoughts on that too.
Okay. Yeah, we are not currently active in that, but I think that's something that we should definitely look at.
Yeah, and I've looked at it periodically throughout my career as well, and I don't know how engaged even the GIS core piece of ERISA is with their national board, and I could be totally off on that, but we do engage with ERISA because they are very proactive in bringing in young professionals and college students and stuff like that, whereas we have not really built up that rapport yet. So we do ask them if they will share some of our events and whatnot specifically directed towards that audience. And they've been more than happy to help us out with that. But they have the Instagram account, which is why I say, give us a good argument and we, we can start one of our own. But to Karen's point, and I don't beat myself up too badly about this. We spend all day in front of a computer and we know lots of cool stuff. So don't get on me for not gaming, being on social media, or doing any of those other things. Sometimes I just need to get outside. So, and considering that, we are in the mid-career, and technically we're not in that group like the millennials where we are just born with an iPad in our hands. I feel like we are very technologically advanced. So yeah, don't be too hard on yourself, Karen.
Thanks, Jeannie. I just, I use LinkedIn to post articles that I find interesting, just thought-provoking articles, and certainly cutting edge technologies too. And so I think there's, the benefit of being active through those platforms is just staying up on, these intriguing ideas and thought-provoking articles to, just broaden your horizons and get you more aware of what's going on and where the thoughts are going. But yeah, I totally get it. Like, that's the last thing I want to do at the end of the day is open up Twitter. So
right.
Yeah.
But then that's kind of why we do have a younger set coming up on our board, and we kind of task them with those things. They seem to enjoy it. So carry on.
Yeah. So we will get, we'll get our Twitter thing figured out. And I think, like I said, I think Nick is going to do an Instagram, or I think Nick was going to do that. So, we'll get that figured out because, again, when we look to recruiting new members and making what we do beneficial to more members, we definitely need to find what works for, different sectors of our membership. So it's definitely, I think, in our interests.
Okay, and we got enough time for one more question, I think. This one's from Jeffrey. How well funded are geospatial initiatives at the state level through legislative funding or agency executive sponsorship?
So that's a tricky question. Again, the CIO that just left yesterday, he was very supportive of living up to our statutory obligations for coordinating GIS at all levels of government. And so he was supportive of that. And he was, I had been given the green light to start designing an enterprise GIS and having conversations with state agencies about what an enterprise GIS would have to do, what requirements we would have to build it. But, specifically, we don't have any exact funding to support it. We're looking at potentially using ARP money for some of that initial build of an enterprise GIS. And then one thing that I should have mentioned that I'll just take another minute to explain is that for those of you who have heard me talk about Next Generation 911 for years, I'm really excited that that is finally taking shape in Wyoming. So we have a woman at WYDOT who is leading the charge of coordinating Next Gen 911, and we have 5 working groups who are meeting monthly to discuss their specific subgroups, and I'm the chair of the GIS working group. And then all the chairs get together once a month to discuss what's happening there. And so we're doing presentations to educate county commissioners and legislators and talking about data standards and the requirement for GIS data and all that kind of stuff, and with the eye toward federal grant money that could be available with the infrastructure bill, that would go a long way to again standing up an enterprise GIS program to support not only enterprise GIS for specifically state agencies, but also in my mind to support that Next Gen 911 effort. So there's a lot going on with Next Gen 911 that I expect we'll be doing a lot more training for local government GIS people to orient you to how, what's going to be needed for GIS data to support Next Gen 911. So more to come for that. It's an exciting time. So thanks everyone. And thanks Nick for moderating us. And I'll turn it back over to you.
Of course, yeah. I'm just looking at the schedule here right now. It looks like we got a break until 11 o'clock. And then we'll have at 11, looks like we'll have Brian Stevens from Woolpert with their presentation. So if you want to keep this up and the Zoom meeting running and go get a coffee or do whatever you need to do, we'll be right back here in 9 minutes to get started with Brian. So stay tuned. Thanks a lot, everybody. Everybody, it's 11 a.m. So we're gonna invite Brian Stevens here to be the panelist. I'm not sure if I've got the juice logged into my own account. Let's see if Genie's still there to bring you over, I think.
Yes. Do you need some help?
Yeah, I need we need to
We
bring
need
Brian
Brian.
Stevens as the panelist so he can
There
share
you
his screen.
go. Oops.
Oh, we got, okay, there he is.
And it probably still has you on mute, Brian, so you might have to hit some buttons.
Did everyone hear me?
Yep,
Yes.
we can hear you and see you.
Right.
And see you.
Sorry about
Great.
that. Sorry about that. Yeah, it's all this. I should know how to do this stuff now. I've been doing it for over a year.
I
I know.
surprise myself at what I don't know.
I feel the same.
Right.
It's always, once you get in front of the controls, it's like, okay, there's 6 buttons down here.
And 12 screens.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, okay, what am I pushing now?
Well, which one?
Yeah, exactly. So I'll just give it a minute, make sure everybody can see my screen here.
Looks good to me.
All right. Well, guys, thank you. I'll try to keep this short and sweet. I have quite a few slides, but most of them are pictures, but definitely appreciate everybody's time. I'm Brian from Woolpert. What we're going to go over today, a little bit of an agenda here is a little bit about us, about Woolpert, those that don't know us. Won't bore you guys too much with that. Go over the USGS 3-DEP program very briefly, as well as the National Hydrography data set, amongst other things that the USGS offers. I'm sure that many of you out there are very familiar with some of these data sets. Then we're going to talk a little bit about elevation-derived hydrography, right? The new hydrography that the USGS is looking at and employing, utilizing the new 3-DEP aerial LiDAR, and what can be done. You see some of that behind me here as background, and we'll talk a bit more about that. And then talked about a couple actual implementations of the programs, one up in Alaska and then another in the Great Lakes, Columbus, Ohio area here in Ohio. A little bit about Woolpert. We were formed in 1911 in Dayton, Ohio. I don't know those that are out there familiar with Ohio at all, but been around a little bit, you know. We have 35 offices plus, and we say plus because we're constantly growing. We're in the mode of expanding currently, which is a good thing, right? And then with that, we say 1,000 plus global employees. We actually have, I believe, around 1,200 now at this point. So things have really been growing for us over the last year and a half, 2 years, and that we see continuing. And most of our offices are located in the continental US, but we do have an office up in Canada as well as one down in Johannesburg, South Africa. So we are now international. Areas of specialization. We started out as an AE firm, architectural engineering firm, but we're now an AEG firm, so geospatial. And the geospatial part of Woolpert has become very large. We're probably out of the 1,200 employees, we're probably sitting about 500 in the geospatial side. So we're, I believe we're the largest group within the company. So it's quite interesting where things are going. It's really becoming wide, you know, mainstream basically, right? You hear people talk about GIS and the uses of data now, LiDAR. We watch TV shows now and I'm hearing about LiDAR and about, you know, GIS, which just a few years ago, you know, it was very odd to hear those types of things, but it's really starting to really take off. With that, these are just a sampling of some of the clients that we serve, right? Aviation, you see, I won't read off everything, but energy facilities, national security, right? Just any number of areas. And basically, you know, we're seeing geospatial, you know, fit in most of these sectors. It's pretty, like I said, pretty interesting where things are going. And what I'm going to talk about today more in focus is basically the existing NHD that is out there from the USGS, as well as in more detail, the elevation derived hydro. What is being looked upon now by USGS is the next big turn of their wheel as far as utilizing the new 3-depth LiDAR that's been flown across the country, or in some cases being completed across the country. I believe it was an 8-year program. We're in the final few years of the program. And I believe out west right now, Colorado, Wyoming, states out in the far western part of the country are now being covered, being completed. So we got a little bit of a push going on, but yeah, a lot of new things coming your way. The 3-depth program, won't get into the nitty gritty, but basically USGS was looking to update their topography, right? Their elevation data that they currently had or currently do have. They're looking at updating, the data that they have currently, for the most part, was, created back in the 70s and 80s. And it was done, those that are familiar with USGS quad maps, that data was created manually, right? From high altitude aerial imagery in most cases. And it was obviously very good data at the time, but as technology's improved, as the data sets have gotten better, obviously it can be improved upon. And with this, utilizing this new 3-depth LiDAR data, which is being acquired across the entire continental US as well as Alaska and other locations in the US, was intended to update our surface data. And so with that, the use of that surface data now is becoming obviously crucial in lots of different cases, in many different facets of what we do. Before we get into some of those examples, I wanted to go through and give you guys a little bit of a background, a little bit on some of the existing data sets that are currently handled by the USGS, one being NHD. I'm sure those out there are probably familiar with the National Hydrography data set. Like I said, it was a good data set. It was created back in the 70s and 80s. Most of it has been updated over time, but has not been done necessarily as a comprehensive update across the entire country. And so again, was done with higher altitude, aerial imagery in lots of cases. The accuracies obviously are not quite what they are today, capable of acquiring, as well as the completeness, right? Things have changed over 50 years on the ground, right? The rivers have changed, some of the streams, the patterns, things have changed. Obviously new drainage patterns have been, created throughout the United States. So the USGS wanted to push to have, obviously those updated. But anyway, so NHD, you naturally then have your watershed boundary data sets. So those that are familiar with any kind of HUCs, whether you're looking at HUC 12s, HUC 8s, those types of things, where you have these bigger drainage basins, a lot of that's determined upon existing elevation data that was available, like I said, from 70s and 80s. Obviously has a certain accuracy that's tied to that time, vintage when it was collected. But then as time's going on, the USGS has updated, kind of piecemeal across the United States with NHD Plus. Some places, have fairly recent data, but in most cases, is needing a little bit more touch. And with that, one of the things, the objectives here is to look at not just the topography, the surface data, but also utilizing this new LiDAR data set that we're all going to be having here to then help with the update of the NHD. What the USGS is referring to elevation-derived hydrography. They're actually taking the elevation data, right, of the LiDAR data and looking at not just the perennial areas of water, but also the ephemeral drainage patterns as well. So those that carry water all year, but then those that carry water just during a rain event. And I think that's where the real power is coming into play, right? Is not just what we can see as far as the drainage, but water that exists, where we can see it in a river or lake or a pond, but where else are those drainage patterns coming from that we don't know, we can't see with our eye necessarily. And so I believe that's where it's really starting to come into play with this EDH program. I mentioned some examples here. One was Alaska. And so we've got a couple project examples here I'm going to go through. Alaska is a special case in that aerial LiDAR was not utilized for the elevation. IFSAR data, radar data was actually utilized. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that, Alaska, right? A lot of it's covered in snow, most of your tundra. And so they wanted to be able to penetrate down into the, through the tundra and get down to the surface. And so they utilized a little different technology to get there, but the same basic concept. right, of how we're taking the data. And you see a boundary here. This is a Huck 8 boundary here in green. It gives you an idea of the extent, right? And I mentioned Huck 8s, Huck 10s, Huck 12s. Huck 12 is the smallest unit right now drainage basin that exists consistently throughout the US. And it's much smaller than what you see here today, but this is just as an example to give you an idea of what you can utilize the FSAR data for, right? You can really start looking at the granularity of the drainage pattern itself. And not, like I said, not just the areas that carry water all year, but especially the areas that are, tributaries that would feed into these perennial areas. Over time, you can really start seeing those in great detail. Another example, and Alaska is great in the sense that there's a lot of elevation, just like out western US, but then there's some locations, right, throughout the US that are very flat, where we have, those out there in your group here that have maybe heard of some of the algal blooms, the issues that we've had on the East Coast. We are very susceptible to some of these things, and a lot of it is the agricultural side of things, right? It's not just the farmers, it's also the, our municipalities too that contribute to this. But here in Ohio, for example, we've got a lot of issue in the western Lake Erie Basin and the Great Lakes, and the Great Lakes in general, right? Where this LiDAR data is going to come into play and it really help us delineate where are the drainages, where are the potential issues coming from, where is all the drainage coming from. And that's one of the problems that we have here in the Midwest is a lot of areas are flat. If I was to drive out here in an area of northwestern Ohio, you couldn't even see where the drainage is, it's so flat. So having the very accurate LiDAR data to be able to show us where those patterns are is a great benefit to us and to the end users. This just gives you a little bit of a kind of a overall view of what's going on here in a small section of the Great Lakes, which is the Lake Erie Western Basin, which covers parts of 3 states. And you can just see the drainage patterns of main rivers that feed into the lake. And of course, in this area of the country, lots of farming. And so it just contributes to even more so and more urgency to know where are the drainages, the drainage patterns, where are they? Where are they coming from? How many are there? That type of thing. And I wanted to get in and show you guys the Huck 12. So you saw the Huck 8s from Alaska. There's quite a few of them, but a much larger basin area. As an example, here's the state of Ohio, and these are Huck 12s. And you can see in Ohio, we have roughly 1,554 Huck 12s. There's a bunch of them. Over a state that's only 43,000 square miles. So, out west, you guys are quite a bit bigger than we are, but I don't know about the Huck 12s, but yeah, it's quite impressive. But I'm going to particularly show you this little Huck. It's shown up here in green. It's a West Creek Huck, they call it, Huck 12. And I wanted to give you an example here of the existing NHD that's shown in red. So the USGS, this is what we currently have available to us from the USGS, which is, it's good data. It's just like I had mentioned, over time things change, right? And technology gets better and we can start defining things in more granular fashion with more automation, with more machine learning type algorithms, deep learning algorithms to help extract some of this data. So this is what we have existing today. And as we start looking at the same area and we can run these different, what we call catchment sizes. So, the Huck 12 here in Ohio is roughly the average size is anywhere from 12 to 15 square miles in size. And what you're seeing, looking at these red boundary areas that you see here are based on 6-acre catchment areas, 6-acre basins, compared to a Huck 12 that may be, tens of square miles in size. And you can see there the granularity already in the stream patterns. That's how much more detail you can start gleaning out just to having that additional data available to you. And so that's one thing that we're seeing as far as granularity and what can be done with the LiDAR data itself to help define more of the drainage patterns and updating that NHD. And then just for giggles, I was like looking at 6-acre catchment. Of course, being me, wanting to know, okay, what does a 1/4-acre catchment do? So running several different scenarios just to see the difference in detail that can be observed. And going to a smaller catchment, you can just see just how much more granular it can get, right? And it gets very, very in some degree regards, it gets a little difficult to see what's going on, but there's a lot of drainage obviously being defined in this particular case. So the smaller the catchment, right, the more drainage can be defined. But then again, is there a case where it's too much? And then one other example I have here, and I'll go quickly through this, is an area, this is within Ohio again, where we have the existing NHD shown in red here. And you can see on the map, looking at an ortho photo, the lakes, for example, back when they were put in, of course, the lakes have changed sizes, right? And you can see already looking at the lakes and ponds that things are different, but you can also start looking at, when I get zoomed in here, looking at the updated data EDH using the aerial LiDAR data and just how much more granular, right? We can now start defining these drainage patterns in this area. And these are based on 6-acre catchments. So it didn't go crazy and go quarter acre, but we'll zoom in and just show you the difference too, right? The blue is the new EDH and the red is the existing NHD. So not only, you see that it's vertically, or I'm sorry, horizontally placed differently, it's also obviously the streams and the definition of what's getting into the stream is much more defined, right? As far as what's attributing to that perennial stream, where are the other areas in the ephemeral areas that are draining into that? And then one of the other pieces, once you get the hydrology into your base map, you can then bring in the rest of the data, right? The LiDAR data, and then create contours. So you're hydro enforcing those contours. So then you're defining exactly what's going on, right? As far as the drainage through that area. And you can see just how, if you can see my cursor, just how defined they are, where it is really, showing these patterns through the contours. So some of the benefits, obviously, we're looking at stormwater runoff, right? I mean, you've got your natural areas, and then you've got your areas that are also, where there's population, of course, and what's happening there, right? What's getting into the stream system. Can update your watershed maps, right? So it can update your HUCs, the boundaries of the HUC models that are existing out there, which is going to be a benefit, obviously, of more defined and accurate elevation data. But I won't read all these, but there's many, many different things that can benefit, by running one of these programs and having the use of that data being updated and up to date, basically. And who's it benefit? It benefits everybody, basically, right? It's going to cut down on the time, it's going to cut down on the cost, and it's going to up the quality of the data. I tell many clients that, it's hard to believe, but technology's gotten so much better today. When you're looking at what's available and what you can do with it today, it's kind of what the GIS community wanted to do way back when, right? You could barely afford, when you were back in the day, to afford your ortho imagery, right? Let alone to do LiDAR and any kind of derivative products that you could do from those types of products. But now that the costs of these things are coming down, the use of machine learning is going up, the accuracies are going up, right? Because the fact of the matter is you're taking away some of the human intervention, right? Which we all have, technicians. We have technicians at Woolpert. They're good technicians, but they're human beings, and so they do make mistakes. So as long as our algorithms and whatnot are designed correctly, we can obviously achieve a very much reduced time frame, reduced cost, and like I said, the quality goes up. Machine doesn't get tired, right? It looks at ones and zeros, and as long as things are inputted correctly, the output comes out very accurately. With that, I'll turn it back. See if there's any questions.
Thank you, Brian.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Went through a lot of stuff very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
I know those 20 minutes fly by once you start presenting, right?
Oh yes, yes it does. It does. It goes by, yes, it goes by very fast.
Yes, I agree. In the chat, the data is so cool. If you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A.
I've overwhelmed everyone.
Yeah. No, if they're anything like me, they will think of them after we've ended today.
Yeah, once you say stop taking
Right.
questions, that's when
Right.
the questions
So,
hit.
Jot Brian's email down here, brian.stevens@woolpert.com.
Oh,
Yeah.
we got one, looks like. So this one's from Another Brian. What's driving the linear drainage patterns on the Ohio slide?
So let me go back.
Oh, the slide. I was like, the Ohio slide.
Yeah, so yeah, exactly.
Oh, the
Yeah, sorry.
Ohio slide. Okay.
Yeah, sorry guys. Yeah, I work a lot in Ohio. Plus, I mean, we do have examples of other locations. Of course, Alaska I brought up, but so what's driving this is that talking to EPA, talking to local government, county government here in this particular case, city government. They're wanting to better manage, the quality of the water, right? It's not just the quantity and the runoff that they have. This community in particular has a large stormwater utility, but they're also looking at the environmental side as well, right? Wanting to kind of get a better idea of where things are, where drainage is coming from. Also looking at development, right, for the future as expansion continues on, right? Population grows. What are the current patterns and what are they going to have to do to re-engineer those areas for drainage in the future? But yeah, it's quite interesting, and we have county engineers in Ohio as well, and that's one of the things that they take care of our transportation. They're responsible for our transportation network at the local level, and they're using a lot of this hydrology data, drainage, for their preliminary engineering that they're doing for roadway redevelopment type of exercises, whether it be bridges or whatnot, and it's definitely very important to them, and having up-to-date data is obviously very crucial. Hope that answers the question.
Okay, and looks like we got a couple others. This one's from Wayne Kemp. Is there a schedule for updates on NHD?
Well, that's a good question. I've got the same question multiple times. So this is something that the USGS, you saw the Alaska example. Let me go back to that. So this started a few years, well, about a year or so back, I guess, that USGS was looking at utilizing the new surface data, and they were, obviously looking at doing it to update the NHD. So they put out to their vendors, and there's 6, I believe, qualified vendors that are on their Gypsy contract, and they reached out. We were one of those that they talked to about this, and they were looking at running some tests, right? Running some, I won't call them experiments, but running some tests to try to figure out and to kind of hone the standard that they're putting into place that they're going to end up putting out to everyone. So that process is still underway as far as their learning curve, some of the expectations, the standard that they want to get set, what they want as far as geometry, right, the line work and the conflation portion of it. So to answer your question in a short sense, nothing's official yet as far as it being rolled out like the 3-DEP program has been at this point, but it is being formed right now currently. And like I said, some communities have jumped ahead and they're just taking advantage of the technology that's available to them. But from a federal perspective, things are being formed right now, and they're looking at pushing it out. I would say within the next 6 months to a year, you're going to hear more about it.
Okay, and then looks like this one's kind of on the same last one from Montezuma County. When will the NHD be updated based on latest DEMs, and will floodplain data for FEMA be updated as well?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. I mean, the FEMA flood maps, I think most of them, that was programmed started, gosh, when I was first starting Woolpert way back when, but that's probably been ongoing for 15 years or so, the FEMA flood maps. And I do know in most cases what I hear is that FEMA is, and they're one of the big partners, funding partners with USGS for new aerial LiDAR. And I do believe that when LiDAR is available for them, FEMA will take advantage of that to update the new maps, to update the floodplain maps. I know in some cases they did not use it, and I think it was because the data was not available at the time. LiDAR data was not available, but I believe where they have it, they are utilizing it. So I'm not sure the timing out west here, but it's probably, in most cases they utilize it when it's available. If it's not, of course they don't. But again, go back to the other question. Yeah, hopefully we're going to hear more about the update of the NHD coming in the near future. I do believe that, like I said, the standard is being finalized right now with USGS. And I would say, sometime, this is out of my own words, out of Brian's words, but I'd say 6 months to a year, we'll really start hearing about their program in earnest.
Okay, great. Well, I think we're running a little over time here, but I think that's all the time we have for Q&A. Thank you very much for your presentation, Brian.
Yep, thank you. Yep, thank you guys. Thanks for listening to me.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Yep. Thanks, Brian.
Guys, have a good afternoon.
Alrighty, you too. Thanks. And okay, so I'm looking at the program here, and looks like next we've got Brian Shaw, with the National Geodetic Survey, modernizing the National Spatial Reference System. So I think oh, you already brought him into the
I did.
presenter. All right. So with that, I'll hand it off to you, Brian, if you're all ready.
Yep. Can you hear me and see my face?
Yep,
Yeah.
we can hear you and see you.
Okay. Let me share my screen. And can you see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, great. Well, thanks for having me. My name is Brian Shaw with NOAA's National Geodetic Survey, and I'm going to have a whirlwind of a presentation to go through modernizing the National Spatial Reference System. You may have heard last June, we announced a delay in the modernization. We'd initially planned to roll it out by the end of 2022. Due to various delays, we're expecting it to be more 2025 probably, assuming we get continued funding and everything. But with that, I'll jump right into highlighting some of our resources. We have a NGS training center where we've been doing a lot of virtual training over the last year, but during normal times, we also do in-person training. We've got a ton of educational videos up to educate our users on geodesy and what datums are and more. So I highly recommend checking those out. We have a monthly webinar series, which tomorrow we're having a webinar on Opus projects where Opus Projects 5.0, which will allow users to upload RTK and RTN vectors. So this has been highly anticipated. And each month we have different webinars on our products and services to help inform our constituents. We also just recently had a major geospatial summit a couple weeks ago, and as well as a couple years ago, where we recorded these sessions. So if you get interested in some of the things I talk about, because I'll be going over this very quickly, you can go and watch these recorded sessions at the Geospatial Summit page and learn more about this modernization in detail from some of our lead scientists. And our the last main resource I want to highlight is the presentation library. It's available, so if you see any graphics or anything that you would like to use in your slides, you can go grab the presentation and grab those and use them for your own, because all of our, being the government, all of our resources are public domain. We've recently updated a couple of our key documents called the blueprint documents that go into great detail about the geometric coordinate changes that are coming with the modernized NSRS, the geopotential coordinates, and then working in the modernized NSRS. As well as a couple years ago, our state plane coordinate system lead put together this great document on the history, policy, and future directions of the state plane coordinate system. So I'd recommend checking that out if you use SPCS coordinates quite a bit. I want to highlight the importance of coordination. I'm the Rocky Mountain Regional Advisor for Colorado, Wyoming, and Montana. We have 14 regions throughout the US states and territories, and each of these advisors helps to work with all of the states in their region to keep them informed on what's coming with NSRS modernization, help them with geodetic questions or needs they have, as well as just general geospatial questions. And my background is heavily GIS, although I do have a bit of surveying and I've worked for almost 20 years at NGS. So I do understand geodesy very well. And so the coordinators on the top right here are key to helping feed information up, as well as the GIS groups like WyGEO and GIS Colorado, helping to keep everyone informed, sharing information. And so John Hunter is the Colorado coordinator, and Mark Corbridge is the Wyoming coordinator. And these coordinators really help a lot. We can help to work with them to keep them informed, as well as feed information up to us, advisors that are working in multiple states. A little background on NOAA and NGS. We were initially created in 1807 by Thomas Jefferson as the Survey of the Coast. And that really was our nation's first civilian science agency. And then we've gone through a couple name changes. The US Coast and Geodetic Survey was really the one that lasted the longest. And if you go out and are looking for marks, there's a good chance that any marks you find in the ground will have the US CNGS stamp on it. And so, but in 1970, we got merged into NOAA along with the Weather Service, the Fisheries Service, and more agencies to become kind of the nation's lead environmental agency. And then the National Geodetic Survey is packaged under the National Ocean Service, as well as a bunch of the other little program offices that were part of the US Coast and Geodetic Survey. And so our mission at NGS is to define, maintain, and provide access to the National Spatial Reference System. And what the NSRS is really a consistent coordinate system that helps to define positions, latitude, longitude, height, as well as scale, gravity, orientation, and shoreline. So understanding exactly where things are, but having everything in a consistent datum or reference frame so that all of the data from different federal agencies can be layered on top of each other and be consistent with each other. That's a very important part, especially for anyone that's gotten GIS layers and different datums, and you put them in the map frame and things just don't line up. That's because they're not using a consistent coordinate system. So making sure all of your data is in the National Spatial Reference System, which today is NAD 83 and NAVD 88. Tomorrow it will be the reference frames and the geopotential datum that I'll talk about here in a minute. And so why do we do what we do? The Earth is an infinitely complex object. So modeling it is extremely difficult. We're getting to a point today where technology's evolved, where we can really model it down to the meter and sub-meter level, but having that digital twin that we're working towards is really just a ton of data. And so in the past, we've really need to simplify this model to a sphere for different things like projections, or an ellipsoid for getting a better shape of the Earth working with GPS, to the geoid model, which is a basic representation of mean sea level across the world. So this spinning globe you see here is the EGM 2008 that NGA puts out for the world, which NGA does what NGS does for the US states and territories, except for NGA does it for the world to support our military. And so the Earth that doesn't really look like this lumpy potato you're seeing spinning, this is just a representation of how the gravity helps to shape what mean sea level would be if you took away the land masses and et cetera. And so we create these complex models to help us simplify it so our programs can work with it, and then we can get orthometric heights or elevations from GPS measurements. And so it took me a long time being a GIS and computer science guy when I first started at NGS to get a good model in my head of datums and reference frames. And after talking to several of our scientists, and particularly our former director, Dave Zolkowski, who gave me this summary of, a datum is a reference surface or framework to reference your data to for consistency. And talking to him more about that really kind of gave me this model of when I was a kid and we were getting our heights measured against the wall. My parents had the wall in a carpeted area. And so, we would stand up and you'd get your height measured every month or two, and you could see the results of the heights over time, how fast you were growing, where your growth spurts were. But that reference surface that we were measuring against was that carpet on the ground. And then my parents decided to change to a hardwood floor. And so what NSRS modernization is doing is we're changing that reference surface. So like When my parents changed to a hardwood floor, that carpeted surface was no longer the reference surface. The new reference surface was the hardwood floor. And so those heights that were on the wall weren't quite related to that old carpeted reference surface. So if that helps you to think about it, the reference surfaces aren't going to change the elevations of our mountains or shift things left and right. We're really just changing those reference surfaces to which the coordinates and the heights are related to. And so one of the key fundamentals of this modernization is gravity. And gravity is really fundamental to every surveying measurement that's done. For anyone that's done any surveying, or even if you do photography and you use your tripod and get that bubble level at that location, you're in essence getting it level to the gravity at that place. And so our understanding of gravity has changed throughout history from Aristotle to Einstein, and even after Einstein, about 5 years ago, a group called LIGO measured the first gravity wave that really proved Einstein's theory of general relativity. So we continue to understand more and more about gravity and how it works, and helps us to make better models of the Earth. And so what NGS has been doing over the last, I guess it's been about 13 years. Our first GravD survey was in 2008. And so we've been going through all of the US states and territories, collecting aerial gravity to help us to build a better geoid model and geopotential datum that will replace NAVD88. And so you can see here, all of the green blocks are the blocks that have been completed. All of the flight lines have been done. They've been processed and published. Any of the blue marks here, or blue blocks here, are completed collecting, but still processing. And then the orange blocks are blocks that we've collected at least one flight line in. And so you can see we're basically got data collected in all 3 states of my region. So Colorado's got the southern part complete, but then all of the rest of Colorado, Wyoming, and Montana are still working to get completed. And at the top here, you can see we're currently at 85.93% complete as of yesterday. And so why are we modernizing the NSRS? Well, NAD83 and NAVD88 are very good datums, and a significant amount of surveying went into them to build them, but they really came at a kind of a poor timing because GPS has really revolutionized surveying. And so today we understand that NAD83 is not truly geocentric. With the new ITRF models and everything, we understand that the center of the Earth is actually 2.2 meters off from what we modeled it at for NAD83, which was a very good estimate for back then, but we understand it to be different today, as well as NAVD88 really relies on marks in the ground. So for you to get NAVD88 heights from the benchmarks, you need to level from those benchmarks. And so you can use GPS today to get NAVD88 heights through the geoid models, but really NAVD88 has some systematic biases going across the country. So they're not really what elevations are as we understand them today through the increased information from gravity. And today's technology really needs to have a better accuracy. And again, these datums are very precise, so they provide consistent results, but we need them to be both precise and accurate. And so some of the main benefits of modernizing the NSRS is this will provide fast, accurate, and consistent elevations everywhere through the use of GPS. So you'll be able to go out and collect data with GPS and get a very accurate elevation, as well as improve public safety. So all of the LiDAR data that's being collected, all of the GPS data being collected, these will significantly help improve floodplain maps and the emergency route planning from those floodplain maps. And then the accurate positioning needs of today with autonomous vehicles and building infrastructure models and smart cities really starting to evolve, we really need to have that very accurate positioning down to the centimeter level today, whereas back with the original NAD83 and NAVD88, it was more in the meter and tens of meter level. So one thing that the GIS community might really be interested in is the state plane coordinate system of 2022. And so we're updating it where states got to choose, how many layers they had, but every state is going to get a statewide zone. And so I focused mainly on Colorado, but every state, including Colorado, Wyoming, Montana, even Alaska, is going to have a statewide zone that is for the entire state. So you could have all of your data in one zone and not have to worry about the split zones. That's kind of been the common practice from the 1983 SPCS. So that's something that the GIS community might be highly interested in having, is that having all of the data for the state in these statewide zones. The future reference frames that will replace NAD 83, we understand after collecting tons of data, primarily through our continuously operating reference stations throughout the US states and territories, that not every plate is moving in the same way. And every plate is moving differently. And I'll have a slide in a minute that shows the velocities, but the Pacific plate is moving in one way. The North American plate is kind of doing this counterclockwise rotation, and the Caribbean plate is shooting up to the northeast. So we realized we needed to create these terrestrial reference frames for each plate that help to emulate the plate fixed model that NAD 83 provided, that helped to not have the velocities come into account so much, but also be able to account for the velocities on these different plates. And so the NAVD88 is going to get replaced with the North American Pacific Geopotential Datum of 2022. And so what this is it's not just a vertical datum, it's more than just heights. It includes models for the geopotential, which help you to understand where water flows. Water will always flow to the higher geopotential, or you can think of it like where there's higher gravity. So in rare circumstances, water can actually flow uphill if there's a denser mass underneath the higher part of the hill. Really, it's more in places like Kansas where there's a very minimal slope. But that kind of blew my mind when I first learned about that water truly can flow uphill, although, you know, it's not a hill, it's just a slope. As well as we'll have models for the deflection of the vertical, gravity, and the new geoid that will allow GPS to get, or GNSS observations to get elevations. And so as we were working on the blueprint documents, we really wanted to come up with a catchy phrase like Talladega Nights with shake and bake. And so with the modernization, we have shift and drift. And I'm not talking about Fast and Furious. I'm talking about the transformations, the immediate transformations and the shift from the datum changes, as well as the continuous drift as coordinates continue to change as the plates move. And so here's just a little quick synopsis of the immediate shifts in horizontal, ellipsoid height, and elevations. And then there's two main components to the drift, which are the tectonic plate rotation, as well as other residual motions due to either subsidence or glacial isostatic adjustment. And so the immediate shifts will be the datum changes when these happen for both the NAVD88 to the NAP-GD 2022 on the right, as well as the NAD83 2011, PA11 or MA11 to the terrestrial reference frames. And so you can see on the right here that systematic bias that came in through NAVD88 due to leveling across the entire country. And here you can see the drift and the plate tectonics and velocities that come from just the natural processes of the Earth. In the middle, you can see the North American counterclockwise drifting. Down in the Caribbean, you can see it going up to the northeast. And then in the Pacific, you can see it's really going up very quickly to the northwest. And there's also various plate tectonic things going on in Northern California, Washington, and Oregon due to the subduction of the Juan de Fuca plate. To help us have a better process and understanding of coordinates for the future, we're going to have basically two new coordinates that are going to be the key coordinates in the future. And so we'll have reference epoch coordinates, which will be a snapshot of the entire network, and all data that's been submitted to NGS will be reprocessed every 5 or 10 years. And they'll be provided these reference epoch coordinates, which are similar to what's today with NAD 2011 coordinates. But we understand that many surveys will be going on at different times, and you really want to have a better idea of where the coordinates are, immediately around your survey. And so these survey epoch coordinates will be provided through what are called adjustment windows. And so these adjustment windows will be anywhere from 1 month to 4 months. We're still working on kind of processing our data, finding out what the ideal adjustment window will be. But stay tuned for more information on this. And the best ways to determine coordinates in the modernized NSRS will be to resurvey the data, because coordinates will be as good as the data is collected today. And we understand that everything is drifting and moving, so that coordinate on that point will be good today. But if you can't go out and resurvey, you can readjust your old data to the modernized system. And the least accurate but less costly is to just transform the data. I'll highlight a little bit of vertical motion, talking about subsidence, glacial isostatic adjustment, and geophysical phenomenon. On the left here, you can see the glacial isostatic adjustment of the Hudson Bay is causing 8 to 13 millimeters a year. And so modernizing the NSRS to account for these different height changes, like the subsidence in San Joaquin Valley, which is going 20 to 24 inches in 16 months, which is a crazy amount of subsidence in a short amount of time, as well as this famous USGS photo that shows 8.5 meters over 50 years. And that's just accelerated since 1977 when that photo was taken. We also have immediate height and horizontal changes, where the China Lake, California earthquake caused 6 to 10 feet of horizontal change immediately. And in Puerto Rico, they had a series of earthquakes that caused 16 centimeters vertically. One of the ways we're working towards modernizing is building transformation tools, as well as requesting data to be submitted to us for GPS on benchmarks. And so we've got this web map application to help users go out and find marks to observe. And then we've got a dashboard to help users monitor how things are going in their state. One of the main ways people submit data to us is through Opus shared solutions. And so we've got a dashboard for that here. And then mark recovery. So even if you're not a surveyor and you can't go out and do surveys, you can use this mark recovery tool to go out and find our benchmarks and let us know the condition of the mark and submit a mark recovery to it. And it even works fine on your phone. I just did a recent mark recovery last weekend when I was in Pagosa Springs on a mark we surveyed in 2017. So please go out. If you want to find benchmarks, you can use this app, and it will even show you where marks are in your local area. And with that, I'll take any questions if we have time. I know I went just a bit over 20 minutes.
Thank you, Brian. We do have one question. I know we're running low on time here, so let's see. Well, I'll just read it real quick. So, does sea level rise since 1988 factor into this process as well? Asked Liam.
Yeah, so the Grab Deep data collection has been happening since 2008. So we're getting a model of gravity where it is a sea level rise, or I guess sea level change, because it's not rising in all parts. There's parts of Alaska that are uplifting where the sea level is actually going lower. But we do have plans for if the sea level change gets to a certain threshold, we'll go out, recollect data, and put out a new geopotential datum once it hits that threshold. But right now, we're basically building it to what an average of sea level is during the time we're collecting the GraphD data.
Okay, so looks good. So yeah, I'd say thank you very much again, Brian, for your presentation. And if you got any more questions, I'm sure they can contact you down there, brian.shaw@noaa.gov. Right. Okay. So let's see.
Yep, please.
Oh, say that again. Okay.
I think he's gone.
All right. So,
Thanks, Brian.
yeah, thanks a lot. So who's next? We've got Kent Park.
Yeah.
Want to bring him in? I don't have the.
Oh, that's right. And I looked
juice.
to grant you permissions, and it looks like you are, but there's Kent. You should be able to unmute yourself now, Kent.
Oh yeah, we can. We'll have to still sharing your screen there, Brian. There we go. Thanks. All right, we are ready for Ken whenever you're ready.
Hey, how we
There he
doing?
is.
Hey,
I made it.
He made it.
I was really worried to start out this morning and watching Brady talk about his 1966 Mustang, and I thought, wow, this is going to be tough to top or even compete with the presentation. And then things kind of mellowed after that. And then Brian brings up the whole shift and drift slogan, and I'm not even sure
The
how to follow
world is-
that one. So I'm
the
gonna
sky is
do my
falling.
best. But before I do anything else, I need to share my screen here. And if you let me know when you can see that, I'd appreciate it.
Yep, can see it. Looks good.
Yep.
Now we just got to start the PowerPoint. There we go. So I'm going to talk a little bit about putting the cloud and AI to work for you. Again, Kent Park with Woolpert. The good news is since you heard from Brian Stevens, one of my coworkers earlier, you don't have to hear a lot about Woolpert. So we're going to skip several slides, make up a couple minutes of time here. We'll get right to the agenda. I'm going to talk about some of the historic data sets, current data sets people are using across the country. Data storage, the big shift from hard drives and servers and racks to more use of the cloud for not only storage but also processing. But the big thing is the data manipulation, how we're able to use our AI and deep learning tools at this point in time to be able to extract features. And then we'll go over a couple of different data products. And one of these is actually some invasive species work that we're doing in the state of Wyoming for the last couple of years. So when we look at a couple of those big historical data sets, we've got orthoimagery and LiDAR. The two biggest things there is we continue to see improvements in resolution, point density, and unfortunately that means larger and larger files that get delivered to the end client. So the other thing, in addition to those historical that we've been looking at for 20 or 30 years, the imagery and the LiDARs, Woolpert's now looking with a lot more geospatial data, anywhere from bathymetry to terrestrial scanning, mobile scanning. We're doing a lot of ground penetrating radar and trying to incorporate all this data into one three-dimensional data set. And those of you who have tried to take 2 or 3 of these data products and view them and use them know that the enormous amount of data that's out there that you're trying to use and analyze, I don't see us getting smaller data sets at any point in time. It just continues to grow and grow as we add all these different data sets from different sensors and different techniques into one three-dimensional model. A couple of examples just to give you some idea here. Orthoimagery, years ago, we looked at black and white USGS quarter quads, approximately 1 meter. Now we're looking, the standard kind of across the country is at a minimum 4-band 12-inch color, but we're seeing an awful lot of upgrades to 6-inch at the county level. We're seeing a lot of 3-inch at the city level, and we're actually seeing some 1.5-inch, not at the city, but at the county level. We have several counties across the state where they're wanting that detailed of imagery, and obviously those large data sets continue to get larger and larger and larger. And the same with aerial LiDAR. So it was talked earlier about the USGS 3-depth program. Originally started out, one of the goals was to go to a QL2 data set across the entire United States. And the more that program has gone on and we're getting ready to wrap up the last couple of years here, but what we're seeing is several states are saying, nah, QL2 is not quite what we want. We actually want to go to QL1. So they're looking at 8 points per square meter for density. And it's all, the idea behind it is the data mining they can pull out of that LiDAR data, the processing afterwards, not just to be able to drive elevation and contours, but what else can they pull out of it? And again, we'll go over some of those products here in a little bit. So again, the typical image most of you have seen, nothing fancy there. Took some numbers to give you some ideas here. When we looked at traditional county, had to come up with a number, so I went with 500 square miles. But you can see the difference going from 12-inch to 6 to 3. How many gigabytes the data set grows every time you do that, and obviously it just gets larger and larger. And again, I don't see us going back up that stair step. I see us continue to go down and getting a finer resolution down to the 3-inch and the 1.5-inch. And LiDAR data points, nice little data point cloud here. But we see the same thing here. So when you look at the traditional, what was the old QL3, LiDAR, 1 point per square meter versus an 8 points, the QL1 spec that a lot of communities are going to today. Large increase in the amount of storage space required, and a large complication when you get into processing, especially large data sets. You know, when we throw a drone up in the air and we fly a couple of acres on a day and we process it, it's not too bad. But when you put an airplane in the air and you let it fly out there on clear days for a month, and it covers several hundred, if not thousands of square miles, and now you try to process that all in one routine to be able to extract that information. The cloud and putting all that information and processing out in the cloud is about the only way to get it done efficiently. So again, some of the best practices for data storage. The cloud first is kind of the mindset. Moving forward, moving away from hard drives, moving away from servers and hosting everything locally. There's a lot of reason for that. And part of it's that image processing and the fact that we can get away from an actual server to do it, but actually having it done in the cloud so it can be done anywhere. The open source libraries that are available to assist with processing today, that data set also keeps increasing, and so we have more and more opportunities for processing. We get into some of the microservices, again, where we're looking at, okay, we want to go in and extract out a specific feature. But again, if it can be shared by multiple communities across the country, it's easier to do it on a cloud versus on an individual server basis. But the other things that the cloud first mindset brings is it gives us multiple regionals. So we've got redundant storage backup, in theory, at least 2, if not 3 different locations across the country. So if you do have some type of a local outage, you don't have to worry about those things anymore. And the same with security. Again, it's a little more secure when it's out there being managed at a larger cloud versus worried about internal servers being attacked. So here's Woolpert's solution. So we started our StreamRaster product about 5 years ago now, where we're hosting imagery. It's a great integration in the fact that it's not an app you have to download. It's not a program. You can log into StreamRaster from any computer, sitting at your desk, at your home office, your boss in a conference room, wherever, be able to log in and look at this imagery. And again, it's hosted in multiple different locations across the country. It's a great, we've actually had several instances where it's been utilized for disaster recovery, where the local server's down and we've been able to host it for people and put the image up there. They've been able to get back to their GIS data almost immediately after the power goes out locally or after they have a disaster locally. We've been able to put their imagery and their data back out there for them to use. Just kind of a little schematic of how StreamRaster works. Again, we're importing any existing imagery, historical imagery, into that data pipeline. We can also pull in any other information, anywhere from 911 information to parcels to road networks. Anything you can think of can also be put in here, overlaid, and then again extracted back out so the user can use it seamlessly regardless of where they're at. Now we'll get into kind of the meat of the presentation, which is more on AI and deep learning. And it's one of the things that kind of gets me excited and keeps me working at this point in time. After 36 years of looking at film diapositives and aerial negatives and things like that, the last 20 years have really changed what we do and how we do it, and the ability to keep on pulling more and more information from both imagery and LiDAR data sets. The increase in what we can get and how quick and how repetitive is just incredible. So again, deep learning, you've got 3 different things here: artificial intelligence. Inside that, you've got the machine learning, and then inside of that, you've got the deep learning, and they all run on different neural networks to be able to do the processing. And it's not only taking the data sets and processing, but you've got to train the computer. You've got to train it what it's looking for. It doesn't automatically know what that car looks like, but after it goes through a series of tests, it can determine, is that object a car or not a car? Is it a house? Is it a impervious surface, vegetation, etc.? Benefits of it: time, cost, and quality. A lot of people think, wow, the cost is really going to down. Well, we still have a lot of QC on the back end, and there's another slide coming up on that, but it is very cost effective. Probably one of the big things about it is it's very repetitive. Once we've trained the computer what the computer is supposed to be looking for, it does it again and again and again. So, you might train it on a small couple acre area and have 3 or 4 of those within a county, but by the time you get to the point where you want to run the entire county data set, it's very efficient because it knows exactly what it's looking for. You've trained it what that feature is you're trying to extract out. And again, the efficiency is because we're putting it in the cloud, we're not relying on a single processor sitting on a server somewhere. We've got multiple processors, cloud-based algorithm or cloud-based software running, and we don't have to worry so much about the local needs or wants of that. Who all's going to be on the local server trying to run other processes at the same time. Again, as I mentioned, it's repeatable. The great thing there is at last, self-improving. As we continue to run it and continue to educate the model, it gets better and more efficient all the time. Just a bullet list of some of the things that we can look at extracting feature-wise, anywhere from buildings to parcels. We can look at change detection. We can look at impervious surface or roads, wetlands, any of these things. Again, once you've trained the computer what to look for, its ability to go out there and extract it from a larger data set is just incredible in how fast it runs. Again, we talked about cost. Well, it's not just a lower cost; it's a different cost, because your machine learning doesn't mean that you're going to have a lower project price. The big thing about it is, from my perspective, is I have a lot more confidence in that data using machine learning algorithms versus manually having individuals or students or interns sit down and physically looking at imagery and LiDAR data sets and extracting that information. It's still a lot of resources and cost due to the cloud computing. You've got to support that infrastructure that's out there. The number of servers that you're trying to run at, the size of the data set's always going to determine, how quickly do we want this, and how much are we willing to pay is going to really determine a lot of those costs that we see out there. But there is a whole lot of significant QA/QC that's still human. It's got to go back and analyze all these final data sets, verify that what's been done is correct and it's accurate, and that the final data product meets the requirements of the scope of work. So again, a little bit about how it is, how machine learning works, I guess, how it's different from the human. Well, to me, the big difference is the human obviously at some point in time can only do so many things repetitive over and over. Whereas that machine learning environment, it can repeat that same algorithm over and over for pixel-based, elevation point-based, combining pixels, but it can do it over and over again, and it never really gets tired, versus the human aspect of it sitting there getting tired or drowsy or distracted by somebody else in an area or in the environment. So the reliability and accuracy of the data is greatly improved over what the human factor. But the compute scale, as far as the overall horsepower you can throw at it, obviously, we can throw more bodies at a project if we're going to do it in a manual methodology, but that also drives up our cost. Whereas on the computing side of it, a lot of times adding more horsepower or more processing capabilities doesn't increase the cost that much, which results in a faster processing and usually a turnaround time that can be greatly reduced once we get into automated versus manual. So again, some of those examples in data products. Here's an example where the basics, building outlines. Zoomed in of those same buildings. This particular project, though, went the next step further. Well, gosh, we're already outlining all the buildings. Let's take a look at the overall stormwater for the community, and now let's actually look at impervious surface. So here we've taken those original building outlines, combined them with the impervious surface of each parcel, and that's what you see in purple there. Better defined once I take the image off. So the area that's assessed on a per parcel basis is the area in purple there, and then the green space obviously is subtracted for that larger building that's got a nice green space in it. But again, what started as hey, we would like buildings, well, with a little bit more processing due to the horsepower of the computer, we can pull out your entire impervious surface network. It only added about 10% to this particular project. So from a time and financial, it didn't add a lot to get that whole impervious surface network versus just the building outlines. And then my favorite that I've been working on for the last couple of years, spent a lot of time with Karen on the phone about this, is cheatgrass. So we are, Woolpert is under USGS GIPSY contract to fly LiDAR in the state of Wyoming. And with that, we've co-mounted a camera, so we get a 4-band data set of imagery along with that LiDAR. We're now training the computer to look for cheatgrass and as we process across the state of Wyoming. So we've pulled out a couple of pilot areas. You can see areas 1, 2, and 3 down there. And then some of the field data that we went out and had people on the ground identify where that cheatgrass is. And then we went out and told the computer, here in this particular area, this is what you're trying to find. It's this height range, it's this density. It shows up at this spectrum when you look at the different red, green, blue, and IR bands, and continue to train the computer into what it's looking for to be able to find this. And eventually we could come up with a cheatgrass infestation probability mapping. The red areas are very high areas of probability, and the orange are a medium or a little bit lesser reliability because it's probably got a mixed grass in there with the cheatgrass in those areas. So some final thoughts. Obviously, the machine learning insights, the effort you put into it has to be a whole lot of planning and thought up front. Again, the one that started out with, hey, let's just do buildings. Well, we saw other people in the community that needed impervious surface. And it's things like that upfront discussions and planning that go a long way in making a reliable project. There's also the great thing about it is as we get into machine learning, there's a lot more that you can do yourself. There's a lot through ArcGIS at this point in time. Google Earth Engine has some capabilities where you can do some of this on your own. Some of those algorithms are already out there and you can run models on your own. But what we're also finding out is when you get into very specific, let's say cheatgrass invasive species, there aren't a whole lot of existing programs out there and existing code that you can rely on. And so that's where you're looking at more of a custom one size fits all solution. Doesn't exist for everything, but where Woolpert's willing to come in, sit down and talk with you and see, okay, what can we do to get the end product identified? And with what we do at Woolpert, that's one of the great things. Everybody thinks we fly imagery and LiDAR, but things like the machine learning and the AI are really what keep us excited and integrated or enthused on a daily basis moving forward. So again, thank you for your time. It's been a great day listening to everybody else, and I hope you have a great rest of the summit here. Any questions?
Thank you, Kent.
Thanks, Kent. That was great. Yeah, if we got any questions, put them in our Q&A or stick them in the chat, and we'll try to get to them here. And I guess in the meantime, while people are asking or posting, I want to plug our social media or our social hour tonight that we have putting on. Both me and Genie will be hosts. Yeah, I can start my camera here. So yeah, be Genie and I will be the hosts, and whoever decides to show up will be playing. I think we got some games played, and
we have games.
Yeah. So.
I haven't even showed Nick yet, so it's going to be fun for everyone.
Yeah. I was actually wondering that as I was saying that. I'm like, yeah, we've got a list of games to play, right, Genie?
Pretty sure Genie's on that. Oh, yes, I am.
Yeah, great. Looks like your presentation is pretty convincing, Kent.
Well, good. Again, thanks, everybody. We'll see you tonight.
All righty. Thanks a lot. Yeah, so this concludes our first day of the Elevations Geospatial Summit, I believe, looking at the program, minus our social going on at 5, and I got the link here. I'll stick it in the chat in case you don't already have it.
Good call.
All panelists and attendees. Yeah, so this link, this will be for tonight at 5. We're gonna get together and have some fun on Zoom. Instead of wasting your colleagues' time during a scheduled meeting, we've got one specifically scheduled for wasting time. So hope to see everybody there.
Yeah, I would just add the plug for the trainings we have tomorrow morning. So there's
yes.
the update from Esri, and then the using R for spatial models from Shannon at WyGEO. Those will be awesome. And then in the afternoon is Nick. I won't say his last name right.
View.
So
I can say it, I can't spell it.
On the Arc Pro tips and tricks. So
yeah,
and the morning Esri one is on ArcGIS for emergency dispatch, emergency management. So
there's some pre-workshop stuff for the R, so I will be sending that out. We've had a few new registrations since that went out on Friday, so I'll send that out again.
Great. Thanks, Jeannie. Didn't mean to commandeer, but just wanted to plug those.
No, good call. We would have ended this and they would never have known.
And all of this is on the website as well.
Yep. Well, thanks, everybody.
Have a great day.
All righty. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.